Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nightmare Narratives. I can picture some of you already in bed, maybe some of you just getting home from work. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. If this helps you relax or sleep, please like and subscribe. It means a lot. Now let's get you comfortable, and I'll tell you tonight's story. My name is Vincent Graymore, but everyone just calls me Vince. I've been a ranger in the Daniel Boone National Forest for 15 years now, and I thought I'd seen everything these Kentucky mountains had to offer. I was wrong. Let me tell you something about being a ranger. It's not like the movies. Most days I'm cleaning up campsites, checking permits, and helping lost tourists find their way back to the parking lot. Sometimes I pull kids out of caves they shouldn't have explored, or help search for a hiker who twisted their ankle 5 miles from nowhere. It's good, honest work. The kind of work my daddy and his daddy would have respected, even if they spent their lives underground in the coal mines instead of above ground in the trees. I'm 41 years old, 6'2", with a beard that's gone more gray than brown in the past year. I walk with a limp from an old mining accident. Yeah, I tried following the family tradition for a while before I realized I couldn't breathe down there. These mountains are my home. I know every trail, every ridge, every hidden spring within 50 miles of my station. That October in 1974, everything changed. It was unseasonably warm for late October. The kind of warm that makes the fog roll through the valleys like something alive, clinging to the trees and making everything look soft around the edges. I remember thinking it was beautiful that morning, watching the mist curl around the ridge lines from my cabin window. My CB radio crackled around 10 in the morning. "Vince, you there? Got a situation." It was Mary Beth from the ranger station. Her voice had that tight quality that meant something was actually wrong, not just tourist wrong. "I'm here. What have we got?" "Family didn't check in last night. The Brennans, from Ohio, 4 of them, Mom, Dad, and 2 kids. Teenagers. They were supposed to be back by dark." I felt my stomach tick. Overnight in these mountains wasn't always dangerous, but it wasn't good either. Where were they headed? Copperhead Ridge Trail. Said they wanted to see the overlook at mile marker 47. I knew that spot. Beautiful view, but 12 miles from the nearest road. If something had happened, if someone got hurt, it would take hours just to reach them. "I'm heading out," I said, already pulling on my boots. "Call the volunteer fire department. We might need extra hands." I grabbed my pack, medical kit, Coleman lantern, rope, my .38 revolver that I'd only ever used on sick animals, and my own CB radio. Standard gear. Everything I'd used 100 times before on search and rescue operations. I'd done 23 of them successfully. This should have been number 24. The trail to Copperhead Ridge starts easy, winding through old-growth forest where the trees are so thick they block out most of the sky. I made good time despite my limp, my boots finding the familiar rhythm of the path. Birds sang in the branches. Squirrels chattered and raced through the leaves. Everything normal. By the time I reached mile marker 47, 3 volunteer firefighters had caught up with me. Bobby, Dale, and young Tommy, fresh out of high school. Good men. Bobby had been on a dozen searches with me. "What do you think happened?" Tommy asked, his voice nervous. "Could be anything," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe they decided to camp overnight. Maybe someone twisted an ankle and they're waiting for help. We'll find them." But even as I said it, I felt something off. The birds had gone quiet. The wind had died completely. The fog was getting thicker, even though it was almost noon. We found their camp 15 minutes later, and that's when I knew something was very, very wrong. The tent was still standing, perfectly neat. Their camp stove sat on a flat rock, and when I touched it, the metal was still warm. A transistor radio played softly, some country station, Dolly Parton singing about a coat of many colors. Their food was laid out like they'd been in the middle of preparing lunch. 4 backpacks lined up in a row, but no people, no signs of struggle, nothing. "Hello," Bobby called out. "Brennan family, can you hear us?" His voice sounded weird in the stillness, flat, like it didn't carry the way it should. "Spread out," I said. Look for tracks. But stay within sight of each other. Nobody goes off alone. We searched the area around the camp. That's when Bobby found the footprints. Vince, you need to see this. The tracks were clear in the soft dirt. 2 adults, 2 kids, walking in a straight line, not wandering or searching for something. Walking with purpose. They led directly toward the cliff edge. My mouth went dry. Follow them. Carefully. We walked single file, following the tracks through the underbrush. They didn't deviate, didn't circle back, just straight toward the cliff where the mountain dropped away 200 feet into a rocky gorge. The tracks stopped at the edge. Just stopped. I got down on my hands and knees, looking at the prints. 4 sets, clear as day. They walked right to the edge of the cliff, and then there was nothing. No signs they'd turned around. No scuff marks from sliding. Nothing at the bottom of the gorge when I looked over the edge. 4 people don't just vanish into thin air. Maybe they walked backward in their own prints, Tommy suggested, his voice shaking. I shook my head. Look at the depth. These are from people walking forward, putting their weight down. You can't fake that walking backward. So where are they? Dale asked. That's when I heard it. A woman's voice, distant and echoing, calling from somewhere up the ridge. Sarah! Sarah, where are you? I need help! Sarah. That was the name of Mrs. Brennan. I'd seen it on the registry when Mary Beth called it in. We all froze. That's got to be one of them, Bobby said. Come on. But something in my gut told me not to move. Something about that voice felt wrong. The way it echoed. The way it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Wait, I said. Help me, please. Sarah! It was a woman's voice, desperate and afraid. Every instinct said to run toward it, to help. But my dogs, my 2 bloodhounds back at the station, I'd brought them on searches before, best tracking dogs in 3 counties. And they'd refused to come this morning. Actually refused. They'd whined and backed away when I tried to load them in the truck, something they'd never done before. Animals know things we don't. Nobody move, I said quietly. Something's not right. The voice called again, and this time I heard my ex-wife's name mixed in with the others. Linda! Vincent! Help me! My blood went cold. Nobody here knew Linda's name. Nobody except me. We're leaving, I said. Right now. Back to the camp. But someone needs help, Tommy started. That's not a person, I said, surprised at how steady my voice was. I don't know what it is, but that's not a person calling for help. We're leaving. Now. I pulled out my CB radio to call for more help, maybe even the state police. But all I got was static. Loud, hissing static that hurt my ears. Bobby pulled out his compass to check our direction back to the trail. The needle was spinning, just spinning in circles, pointing everywhere and nowhere. Guys, Dale said, his voice barely a whisper. How long have we been up here? I checked my watch. It said 2:15 p.m. But that couldn't be right. We'd found the camp around noon. We'd only been searching for maybe 30 minutes. But my watch said 4 hours had passed, and the sun was still in the exact same position in the sky, like it had frozen in place. The voice called again, closer now, calling all our names. Names it shouldn't know. Run, I whispered, then louder. Run! We crashed through the forest, not caring about the noise. The path that had been so clear on the way up seemed different now. Trees I didn't recognize, rocks in places they hadn't been before. The trail markers, those bright orange tags nailed to the trees every 100 yards. They were gone. All of them. Where's the trail? Tommy gasped, his young face pale with fear. I don't know, I admitted, which might have been the scariest thing I'd said all day. I'd never been lost in these mountains, not once in 15 years. The voice kept calling behind us. Sometimes it sounded far away. Sometimes it sounded like it was right behind us, whispering in our ears. Vincent, why won't you help me? Don't you love your daughters? I stopped running so fast I almost fell. My daughters. Emma and Sophie, 7 and 9 years old. Living with Linda now, 50 miles away in Lexington. I was fighting for custody. Fighting to prove I was a good father despite the long hours and the dangerous work. "Don't listen to it," Bobby said, grabbing my arm. "Keep moving." But the voice knew exactly what to say. "Daddy? Daddy? I'm scared. Why won't you come find me?" That was Emma's voice. Perfect. Every little quirk and pitch that made it hers. "It's not real," I told myself. "Emma's in Lexington. She's safe." "Are you sure?" the voice asked. And now it sounded like it was right next to me, whispering in my ear. "Are you really sure?" We kept running. After what felt like hours, though my watch had stopped completely now, we found ourselves in a clearing I'd never seen before. A perfect circle, maybe 50 feet across, where no trees grew. The ground was covered in dead leaves, and in the center was something that made my skin crawl. A jacket. A teenager's denim jacket hanging from a branch. Except the branch was 60 feet up in a tree. A smooth-barked beech tree with no limbs below the hanging jacket. No way to climb it. No way for anything human to get up there. "That's the son's jacket," Dale said, his voice shaking. "I saw him wearing it in the photo at the ranger station. Had a band patch on the back. See?" He was right. Even from the ground, I could see the Led Zeppelin patch sewn onto the back. "How did it get up there?" Tommy asked. None of us had an answer. The sun was setting now. Somehow it had finally moved, jumping from noon to dusk in what felt like minutes. The fog was getting thicker, turning the forest into a maze of gray shadows. "We need to find shelter," I said. "Set up a defensive position until morning." "Defensive against what?" Bobby asked. Before I could answer, we heard screaming, not the voice that had been calling us. This was real screaming, human screaming, coming from above us. We all looked up. In the tree canopy, maybe 40 feet up, I could see two shapes suspended in the branches. They were moving. Alive. "Oh my God," I whispered. It was Mrs. Brennan and her daughter. They were tangled in the branches like spiders had wrapped them up, though there were no webs. Their eyes were open, staring down at us, but they weren't screaming anymore. They weren't making any sound at all, just staring. "We have to get them down," Tommy shouted. I grabbed him before he could run to the tree. "Don't. Look at their eyes." Even in the fading light, I could see it. Their eyes were empty, not dead exactly, but gone, like nobody was home inside their heads anymore. "What happened to them?" Dale asked. "I don't know, but we're not equipped for a high-altitude rescue in the dark. We need to—" That's when I saw her, standing at the edge of the clearing just inside the tree line. A tall woman in a white dress that looked like it was from 100 years ago, long dark hair hanging over her face. She was perfectly still, just watching us. "Do you see her?" I whispered. "Yeah," Bobby breathed. "I see her." We all stared. Nobody moved. For a long moment there was absolute silence. Then she tilted her head, like a curious dog, and she smiled. It was the warmest smile I've ever seen. Too wide, too many teeth. And she opened her mouth. The sound that came out wasn't a voice. It was all voices. Everyone we'd ever loved, everyone we'd ever lost, everyone we'd ever hurt. All screaming at once in perfect, horrible harmony. The sound hit us like a physical force. I felt my knees buckle. My vision went white around the edges. Every mistake I'd ever made, every person I'd failed, every moment of pain in my entire life came flooding back all at once. I heard myself scream, though I couldn't hear the sound over the chorus of voices. Then suddenly, it stopped. The woman was gone. The clearing was empty except for us 4 men lying on the ground, gasping like we'd been drowning. What was that?" Tommy sobbed. I didn't have an answer. My ears were ringing. My head felt like it had been split open. When I looked up at the tree, Mrs. Brennan and her daughter were still there, still staring down with those empty eyes. But now I understood. Whatever that woman was, she'd done that to them, taken something from inside them, left them as empty shells suspended in the trees. And she was hunting us too. "We need to get off this mountain," I said, forcing myself to stand. My legs shook like a newborn calf's. "Right now, we head downhill. If we keep going downhill, we'll hit the valley eventually." "But the survivors," Bobby started. "We can't help them if we're dead," I said harshly. "Or worse. We get down, we get help, we come back with more people and better equipment." It wasn't heroic. It wasn't even brave. But it was the truth. We started walking, trying to navigate by the slope of the land since our compasses were useless. The forest had changed again. Trees that should have been familiar were twisted and wrong. Paths that should have existed weren't there. It was like the mountain itself was rearranging to keep us lost. My CB radio crackled with static, and then, impossibly, I heard Mary Beth's voice. "Vince? Vince, are you there? We lost contact 6 hours ago. Where are you?" My hands shook as I grabbed the red and, "Yes, sir. Mary Beth, we're on Copperhead Ridge. We found 2 of the family, but something's wrong up here. Something's very wrong. We need—" The radio cut to static, and then that voice came through. The hollering woman. But this time she used Mary Beth's voice. "You're not going anywhere, Vincent. You're going to stay here with me. You and your friends. We're going to be a family." I threw the radio as hard as I could. It hit a tree and exploded into pieces. "She knows our names," Dale said. "She knows everything about us. How?" I thought about the empty-eyed woman and girl in the tree. "She takes it. From the people she catches. She learns about them. About everyone they know. Everyone they love." "That's impossible," Tommy whispered. "Yeah," I said. "It is." We walked through the night. The moon rose, fat and yellow, but its light didn't help. Every shadow seemed to hide something. Every sound made us jump. The voice kept calling. Sometimes it was our mothers, sometimes our wives or girlfriends, sometimes our children, always knowing exactly what to say to make us want to follow. "Bobby, honey, I've been waiting for you." That was Bobby's mom. She'd died 2 years ago from cancer. Bobby stopped walking. Tears ran down his face. "Mom?" "Don't," I said, grabbing his arm. "It's not her. It's never her." "But it sounds just like—" "It's learned her voice from your memories," I said, though I didn't know how I knew that. I just did. "It's in your head somehow, taking what you remember and using it against you." We kept walking. Around midnight, my watch had started working again, jumping forward in strange intervals. We found the father and son. They were in a small ravine, standing perfectly still in the moonlight. Not suspended like the others, just standing, waiting. "Mr. Brennan?" I called out. They turned to look at us in perfect unison. Their mouths opened, and they called for help in our voices. I heard my own voice calling to Bobby. "Bobby, help me, please, I'm hurt." Bobby's voice called to Dale. Dale's voice called to Tommy. The son's mouth moved, but my voice came out, "I can't move. Something's wrong with my legs." It was like looking in a funhouse mirror. Seeing these people use our voices, our words, calling for help in a perfect mimicry of how we'd sound if we were the ones trapped. They're bait, I realized. She's turned them into bait. They're calling for help to draw more people in. "We have to help them," Tommy said. "We can't," I said, my voice breaking. "Look at their eyes. Same as the others. Empty. Gone. Whatever they'd been, they weren't anymore." The father took a step toward us, then another, moving stiff and wrong like a puppet with tangled strings. "Run," I said, for the second time that day. We ran. By dawn, we were exhausted. We'd been running and walking for over 14 hours, and we were still on the mountain. Every path led us in circles. Every landmark we tried to follow disappeared when we got close. The mountain was keeping us here. We collapsed in another clearing as the sun came up. Gray light filtered through the fog, which had never lifted. I'd never seen fog last this long in the mountains. "I don't understand," Tommy said, his voice hoarse from calling for help that never came. "What does she want?" Why is she doing this? I'd been thinking about that all night, trying to remember the old stories. My grandmother used to tell me things, stories about the mountains, things that lived here before people came, and things that stayed after. The old-timers talk about the hollering woman, I said slowly. I always thought it was just stories to scare kids, keep them from wandering off. What do they say? Bobby asked. That she lost her own children a long time ago, 100, maybe 200 years back, lost them in these mountains somehow, and now she collects new ones, new families, keeps them with her forever. That's insane, Dale said. Yeah, I agreed, but we saw her, we heard what she can do. Maybe the old stories aren't so crazy after all. Bobby was trying his CB radio again, more static. But then, suddenly, another voice came through. A real one. Anyone receiving? This is Ranger Station. Search party mobilizing. Copperhead Ridge. Mary Beth, I shouted, grabbing the radio. Mary Beth, we're here. We're still on the ridge. Static. Then, Vince? Thank God. We're sending more people. Park Service, State Police, everyone, just hold on. The radio died. Not static this time, just dead. At least they know we're up here, Tommy said. They're sending help. I felt a chill run through me. No. What? If they send more people, she'll have more victims, more voices to use, more families to tear apart. I stood up, ignoring the pain in my bad leg. We can't let them come up here. How do we stop them? Bobby asked. We have to stop her first. They all stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Vince, Dale said carefully, we don't even know what she is. How are we supposed to stop her? I don't know yet, but I know we can't keep running. This mountain is hers. She controls it. The only way off is through her. That's suicide, Bobby said. Maybe, but it's the only plan I've got. Before anyone could argue, we heard something that made my blood freeze. Children laughing. Not just any children. My children. Emma and Sophie, their voices clear as bells, giggling like they did when I pushed them on the swings. Daddy, come play with us. I turned around slowly. They were there. Emma and Sophie, standing at the edge of the clearing in their favorite dresses, looking exactly like I remembered, smiling at me with perfect, beautiful smiles. No, I whispered. We missed you, Daddy, Emma said. Why don't you visit us anymore? Mommy says you don't love us, Sophie added, her bottom lip trembling. My heart shattered. Be good. 'Cause that was my fear, my worst fear, that my daughters would think I'd abandoned them, that the divorce and the custody battle would make them think I didn't love them. You're not real, I said, but my voice shook. You're not my girls. How can you say that? Emma asked and started to cry. Perfect tears rolling down her perfect face. We came all this way to see you. I took a step toward them before I could stop myself. Bobby grabbed me. Vince, don't, it's her. It's the hollering woman. But they look so... She's in your head. She knows what you're most afraid of, what you want most. She's using it against you. The girls' faces changed. Smiles twisted into something wrong, something angry. Why won't you love us, Daddy? They said in unison, their voices layering and echoing. Why did you leave us? Then they opened their mouths impossibly wide, and that horrible chorus of voices came screaming out again. I fell to my knees, hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my head. All the guilt and pain and fear I'd been carrying since the divorce, since losing custody, since feeling like a failure as a father, it all came pouring out at once. I felt something warm on my face and realized my nose was bleeding. So was Bobby's. So was everyone's. The sound was killing us. Not quickly, but steadily. Breaking us down from the inside. Then the girls, the things that looked like girls, started walking toward us. Their movements were jerky and wrong, like broken dolls. We're going to be together forever now, Daddy, they said, just like you wanted. I tried to stand, but couldn't. The sound had taken all my strength. My vision was going dark around the edges. This was it. This was how it ended. But then Dale did something I'll never forget. He stood up, bleeding from his ears now, and he screamed back, just screamed at the top of his lungs. No words, just raw sound, fighting against the sound, trying to kill us. And somehow it worked. The girls' voices faltered, weakened. "Come on," Dale yelled. "Fight it! Use your voices!" I understood. So was her weapon. She used voices, used sound to hurt us. But maybe sound could hurt her too. I screamed. Bobby screamed. Tommy screamed. All of us, making as much noise as we could, shouting and yelling and screaming ourselves hoarse. The girls flickered like bad TV reception. Their voices cut in and out. Then they vanished completely. We collapsed, gasping. My throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. "That was smart," I croaked to Dale. He nodded, unable to speak. Blood was still dripping from his nose, but we'd learned something important. The hollering woman used sound as a weapon, but sound could work both ways. "We need to find her," I said. "The real her, not the tricks and illusions. We need to find where she actually is." "And then what?" Bobby rasped. "Then we make so much noise she can't think, can't focus, can't use her power." It wasn't much of a plan, but it was something. We started searching, not running away this time, actively looking for her, following the feeling of wrongness, the places where the air felt heavy and strange. Around noon, the sun had started moving normally again, like the mountain knew we'd changed from prey to hunters. We found something, a cave, hidden behind a waterfall that I'd swear wasn't on any map I'd ever seen. The water fell silent, like someone had pressed mute on the world. "She's in there," I said. I knew it in my bones. "We don't have to do this," Tommy said. His face was pale. "We could try to run again, try to find a way down. And when we do, when we lead 100 searchers up here looking for us, she'll take them all. Use their voices, their families. It has to end now." I pulled out my revolver. 5 bullets. Bobby had a hunting knife. Dale had a can of bear spray. Tommy had a heavy maglite flashlight. Not exactly an arsenal for fighting something supernatural, but it was what we had. We stepped behind the waterfall and into the cave. The cave opened up into a massive chamber, and I finally understood what we were dealing with. The walls were covered in things, personal items, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Watches, jewelry, glasses, children's toys, all arranged in careful patterns. Years and years of victims, all their belongings preserved like trophies. And in the center of the chamber was the hollering woman. She wasn't hiding anymore. She stood in full view, and she was beautiful and terrible all at once, tall and pale, wearing that old-fashioned white dress. Her hair fell around her face in dark waves. But her eyes were wrong. Too large, too black, like holes in the world. "Vincent," she said, and her voice was gentle now, soft. "You brought me friends. How kind." "Let the Brennan family go," I said, surprised my voice wasn't shaking. "Let them go, and we'll leave. We won't tell anyone about this place." She laughed. It sounded like wind chimes and breaking glass. "Oh, Vincent, you don't understand. They're already gone. The people they were are gone. I've taken everything that made them themselves, their memories, their loves, their fears, all of it. I've woven them into my collection." "Why?" I asked. "Why do you do this?" Her face changed, flickering between beautiful and monstrous. "Because I'm alone. I've been alone for so long. My children." Her voice broke, and for a moment she almost sounded human. "I lost my children in these mountains 200 years ago. The winter was cruel. The wolves were hungry. I heard them screaming for me, but I couldn't find them in time. I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "That's terrible. But taking other people's families won't bring yours back." "No," she agreed. "But it fills the silence. Do you know what it's like, Vincent? To hear your children calling for you year after year, century after century, knowing you can never answer? Knowing you failed them? I thought of Emma and Sophie, of Linda keeping them from me, of the empty feeling when I couldn't be there for them. Yeah, I whispered. Red. I know something about that. She smiled, and this time it was sad. Then you understand. I collect families now. Keep them here where they're safe, where they can't be lost. I learn everything about them. Preserve their voices forever. They become part of me, part of my family. That's not family, Bobby said. That's prison. Her expression hardened. What would you know about family? You abandoned your mother when she was dying, left her alone in that hospital while you worked your meaningless job. Bobby flinched like he'd been slapped. And you, she turned to Dale. Your wife left you because you cared more about drinking than about her. You let alcohol destroy your marriage. Dale's hands clenched into fists. And you, she looked at Tommy. You're just a child playing at being a man, running from your father's expectations, hiding in these mountains because you're too afraid to face real life. Tommy's eyes filled with tears. Stop it, I said. Why? It's all true. I know everything about you. All of you. I've been watching, learning. I know your worst mistakes, your deepest shames. And soon, I'll know everything else. When I take you, when I add you to my collection, all your memories will be mine. All your loved ones' voices will be mine to use. Forever and ever and ever. She started walking toward us. Now, I said quietly. We all started making noise, shouting, screaming. Bobby banged his knife against the cave wall. Tommy turned on his mag light and shone it directly in her eyes while yelling at the top of his lungs. Dale sprayed his bear spray in her direction. The hollering woman shrieked, not with her collection of voices this time, just her own voice, high and piercing. My CB radio, I shouted. Bobby, get the pieces of my radio. He understood. He ran back toward the cave entrance where I'd thrown my radio earlier, came back with the shattered pieces. The cave itself was acting like an amplifier. Every sound we made echoed and bounced and grew louder. The hollering woman covered her ears, her face twisting in pain. I understood. Now. She controlled sound, used it as a weapon, but too much sound, too much chaos. It hurt her, overwhelmed her. Keep going, I screamed. We made as much noise as we possibly could. And then I remembered something from my ranger training. Sound waves, echoes, feedback loops. I took the broken CB radio and found the speaker and the microphone. Even shattered, they might still work. I twisted some wires together, praying I remembered enough about electronics. Everybody get behind me! I turned on the power. The radio sparked and crackled. Then I held the microphone up to the speaker. Feedback. Horrible, ear-splitting feedback that started quiet but built and built and built as it echoed off the cave walls. A feedback loop, getting louder with each cycle. The hollering woman screamed, really screamed. Her form started to flicker and fade like she was losing her hold on reality. No, she shrieked. You can't. I need them. I need my family. They're not yours, I shouted over the feedback. They never were. The sound kept building. My ears felt like they were going to burst. Blood ran down my neck from the pressure. But I kept holding the microphone to the speaker. The hollering woman began to break apart. Not physically. She just faded. Like smoke dispersing in wind. Her voice grew fainter and fainter until I couldn't hear it at all. The feedback reached a crescendo. Something in my throat gave way with a burst of pain. I tasted blood. And then, suddenly, silence. Complete and total silence. The hollering woman was gone. The cave was empty, except for us and all those sad mementos on the walls. I tried to speak, but couldn't. Nothing came out. Not even a whisper. I'd destroyed my vocal cords with that final scream. But Bobby was patting my back, saying something. Tommy was laughing and crying at the same time. Dale was pointing toward the cave entrance. Sunlight. Retoidation. All sunlight, streaming in clear and bright. We stumbled out of the cave. And the mountain was normal again. The paths were where they should be. The trail markers were back. Our compasses pointed north. We found the Brennan family about 100 yards from the cave. All four of them, unconscious but alive. Their eyes were closed, and when Mrs. Brennan opened hers, I saw awareness there. Personality. Soul. She was back. They all were. The official report said it was a mass hallucination. Something about geological formations causing acoustic anomalies. Carbon monoxide from a cave system causing shared delusions. The Park Service had their experts come in and write up some scientific explanation that made sense to people who hadn't been there. They found the teenage son's body. He'd died from exposure, they said. Just got separated from his family in the fog and succumbed to the cold. The fact that it had been unseasonably warm didn't seem to matter to the official report. 3 other bodies were recovered from that cave system. Old bodies. Mummified remains that dental records eventually identified as missing hikers from the 1950s, 1960s, and 1980s. The Park Service quietly closed that section of Copperhead Ridge, said the caves were structurally unsound. The Brennan family recovered, physically at least, but Mrs. Brennan told me, in writing since I couldn't talk anymore, that none of them remembered anything after setting up camp that first day. Just a blank spot in their memories. Then waking up in the cave with rangers helping them. Maybe that was a blessing. Dale left the volunteer fire department. Last I heard, he'd moved to Florida. Somewhere flat. Somewhere with no mountains. Tommy joined the Army. Said he needed to face his fears. Prove himself. I hope he found what he was looking for. Bobby stayed. He still helps with search and rescue. But he won't go up to Copperhead Ridge. None of us will. As for me, I can't be a ranger anymore. Not when I can't call out to lost hikers, can't use my radio properly, can't do half the things the job requires. Can manage a whisper on good days. On bad days, nothing at all. The doctor said I did permanent damage to my vocal cords. They asked what happened, and I wrote down that I'd been screaming for help during the search. They accepted that. I lost my custody case. The judge said a man who can't speak can't properly care for young children. Linda was sympathetic, but she got full custody. I get supervised visits twice a month. Emma and Sophie are learning sign language. Emma and Sophie are learning sign language to talk with me. They think it's fun, like a secret code. They don't know what I sacrificed my voice for. Maybe someday I'll tell them. Maybe I'll write it all down so they understand that some things are worth losing your voice over. I work at the ranger station now, desk job, filing paperwork, answering phones. Though I have to use a text-to-speech program on the computer. It's not the same as being out in the mountains, but at least I'm still connected to this place somehow. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. About 3 months after everything happened, I started getting reports. Not official reports. Those would never make it past the Park Service bureaucracy. But rangers talk. We share stories over beers at conferences in the break rooms. Hikers in the Smokies hearing their children calling from the woods. A family in the Ozarks found wandering, saying they'd heard their grandmother's voice telling them to follow her. A search and rescue team in the Cascades refusing to go into a certain valley because they kept hearing their own names called in their mother's voices. It's spreading. Or maybe it was always out there, and I just never knew to listen for it. Maybe there's more than one hollering woman. Maybe she had sisters. Maybe she had daughters of her own before she lost them. Maybe the mountains are full of things that collect and preserve and remember, feeding on our connections to each other, on the voices of the people we love. I tried to warn the Park Service, wrote up a detailed report, sent it to the regional director. They filed it under Ranger Graymore, medical leave, stress-related incident. So I'm warning you instead. If you're hiking in the mountains, anywhere, and you hear someone calling your name, someone you know, someone you love, don't answer. Don't follow the voice. Check your compass. See if it's spinning. Notice if the birds have gone quiet. Feel if the air has that heavy, wrong quality to it. And if you see a woman in the woods standing too still, watching you with eyes that are just a little too dark, a little too empty, run. Run and don't look back. Don't try to help her. Don't listen to her stories. Don't let her learn your voice. Because the thing about the hollering woman, the thing I learned too late, is that she doesn't just take your voice. She takes everything that voice connects you to. Every person you've ever called to. Every "I love you" you've ever spoken. Every laugh, every cry, every whispered secret in the dark. She collects it all, preserves it forever in that terrible collection. And she's patient. She's been doing this for 200 years. She can wait another 200. Mary Beth still works at the ranger station with me. Sometimes, late at night when we're the only ones there, she asks me if I ever regret it, going into that cave, losing my voice. I write the same answer every time. No. Because 4 people came home alive. The Brennan family got to go back to Ohio, back to their lives, even if they're missing a son. Even if they have nightmares they can't quite remember. That's worth a voice. But here's what I don't write, what I can't tell her. Sometimes, late at night in my cabin, I hear things. Whispers in the wind. Echoes that shouldn't be there. And once, just once, I heard my own voice calling from outside my window. My voice. The one I used to have before I destroyed it. "Vincent," it called. "Come outside. I want to show you something." I didn't answer. Didn't go to the window. I sat in the dark with my hands over my ears, even though I can't make noise anymore to drown it out. And I waited for dawn. The voice went away eventually. But I know it'll come back. Because I took something from the hollering woman. I broke her collection, freed her prey. And she's not the forgiving type. Bobby came by last week. First time I'd seen him in months. He looked older, tired. He had a beer and I had coffee, and we sat on my porch watching the sun set over the mountains. He pulled out a notebook, wrote, "Do you ever hear her?" I nodded. He wrote, "Me too. She calls me in Mom's voice. Every night." We sat there for a long time. 2 men who'd seen something we couldn't explain. Who'd survived something we shouldn't have, watching the mountains turn purple in the failing light. Before he left, he wrote one more thing. "Do you think we really stopped her? Or just made her angry?" I didn't have an answer for that. Still don't. All I know is that the mountains are beautiful and ancient and dangerous. They were here long before us, and they'll be here long after we're gone. And some of the things that live in them, really live in them, as part of them, don't think the way we do, don't love the way we do. They collect, they preserve, they remember. The hollering woman is still out there somewhere. Maybe she's rebuilding her collection. Maybe she's learning new voices. Maybe she's found a new cave, a new mountain, a new hunting ground. Or maybe she's just waiting. Waiting for me to come back to Copperhead Ridge. Waiting for the day I forget to be careful, forget to check the compass, forget to listen for the silence that means she's near. Waiting to add my voice, my real voice, the one I lost, to her collection forever. I think about taking Emma and Sophie and Linda and moving far away from these mountains, somewhere, flat, somewhere safe. But then I remember, I heard her use Linda's voice, my daughter's voices. She already knows them. She's already learned them from my memories, from the inside of my head. Geography won't save us from something that collects voices and memories and the invisible threads that connect us to the people we love. So I stay. I work my desk job. I visit my daughters twice a month. I live my quiet life. And I never, ever go hiking anymore. Not in these mountains, not in any mountains. Because I know what's waiting out there in the fog and the silence and the spaces between the trees. She's waiting, and she knows my name. My name is Woodrow Sawbones. Woody to anyone who's worked a forest longer than a season, and I've spent 44 years learning that trees are the most honest judges you'll ever meet. They don't lie about what you've done to them. They just remember. 17 years I've been with the Forest Service now, but before that I ran crews for Piedmont Timber Company. We clear-cut over 3,000 acres of Pisgah National Forest between 59 and 72, back when old-growth hardwood was worth more than a man's conscience. I operated a McCulloch chainsaw 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. My hands are still scarred from the work, white lines across my palms where the vibrations split the skin open. calluses thick enough I can handle hot metal barehanded. I tell you this so you understand. I'm not some tree-hugging idealist. I've dropped more timber than most men have seen in their lives. 500-year-old oaks that took 3 men to fell. Tulip poplars tall enough to make your neck ache looking up. Chestnuts the size of grain silos, back before the blight got them all. I cut them down and I got paid, and I didn't think twice about it. Not until I started replanting what I'd destroyed. The Forest Service hired me in '73 specifically because I knew what we'd done to Pisgah. They wanted someone who could look at a clear-cut moonscape and remember what stood there before. My job was reforestation management, putting back what we'd taken, one seedling at a time. I've personally planted over 10,000 trees in the past 4 years. Red oak, white oak, hickory, maple, native species, carefully selected for soil composition and elevation. Scientific forestry, they called it. Penance, I called it privately. By April of 1976, I'd learned to walk differently. Not the timberman's heavy trudge, but a planter's measured pace. 3 steps: dig, plant, tamp, repeat. My crew of 8 moved through the regeneration zones like monks performing ritual, transforming bare earth back into forest. It was satisfying work, honest work, until we reached Sector 47. That's what the Forest Service called it, Sector 47, about 200 acres on the northwestern slope of Mount Pisgah, elevation between 4,200 and 4,800 feet. We'd clear-cut it in the summer of '63. I remembered because it was the hardest season of my logging career. The trees there had been massive, pre-settlement forests that had somehow survived every logging operation since the 1800s. Some of those oaks were pushing 400 years old. The largest one, a white oak I'd dropped myself, measured 18 feet in circumference at breast height. Took me and 2 other sawyers 6 hours to bring it down. When we arrived to begin replanting on Monday, April 12th, I stood at the sector boundary and felt something I'd never experienced in any forest before or since. The trees didn't want us there. I know how that sounds. Dead trees don't hold grudges. Stumps don't harbor resentment. But standing there with my planting crew, looking out over 200 acres of regeneration growth, 14-year-old scrub pine and opportunistic hardwood saplings struggling up through the logged-over soil, I felt hostility radiating from the ground itself. "Boss, you all right?" That was Marcus Webb, my crew chief, 26 years old and strong as a mule. He'd noticed me standing frozen at the tree line. "Fine," I said, shaking off the feeling. "Let's get the equipment staged. We've got 3,000 seedlings to get in the ground before Friday." We'd barely started unloading when the problems began. The chainsaws wouldn't start. Not couldn't start. Wouldn't start. We'd brought 2 Husqvarna 2100s and a Steel 090, all serviced the previous week, all running perfectly during the drive up. But in Sector 47, they were dead weight. And pull the cord 100 times, nothing. Check the fuel mixture, verify the spark plug, clean the carburetor, all the troubleshooting steps I'd done 10,000 times in my logging days. Nothing worked. "Must be the altitude," suggested Tommy Pritchard, our youngest crew member at 19. "Carburetor needs adjusting for the elevation." "We've worked higher elevations than this," I said, staring at the Husqvarna like it had personally betrayed me. "These saws should run fine at 4,500 feet." We ended up using hand tools, Pulaskis, and planting bars, which slowed us down considerably. By Tuesday afternoon, we'd only managed to plant 400 seedlings, well behind schedule. But the real strangeness started that night. Marcus radioed me at the ranger station around 11 p.m. His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "Woody, you need to get up here. Something's happened to the planting site." I drove up in the Forest Service pickup, bouncing over old logging roads I could navigate blind. The crew had set up a base camp about 50 yards from the sector boundary. 4 tents, a cooking area, equipment storage. When I arrived, all 8 crew members were standing outside their tents, flashlights pointed at the planting site. "Show me," I said. Marcus led me to the area we'd worked that afternoon. We'd planted 400 red oak seedlings in careful rows, each one properly spaced, roots spread, soil tamped. Professional work. Every single seedling had been uprooted and arranged in a perfect circle, roots pointing inward. Animals? I asked, though I already knew better. Deer don't arrange seedlings in geometric patterns, said Sarah Chen, our forestry technician and the most educated member of the crew. She had a master's degree from NC State and didn't believe in anything she couldn't measure. Neither do bears. This required deliberate manipulation. I knelt beside the circle, examining the seedlings. They were undamaged, carefully pulled up, not torn or chewed. The roots were still moist. This had happened recently, probably within the last hour. Would be locals, I said. People who don't want the Forest Service replanting. Happens sometimes. But even as I said it, I was remembering that feeling from Monday. The hostility, the sense of being unwelcome. We'll replant tomorrow, I told the crew. Set up a watch rotation tonight. 2 people awake at all times, keep eyes on the planting site. I should have pulled everyone out right then. Instead, I drove back down to the ranger station and spent 3 hours digging through old logging records, looking for something I couldn't quite name. I found it in a forestry survey from 1962, the year before we logged Sector 47. The surveyors had documented every significant tree, and their notes read like eulogies. White oak, estimated 380 years old, 17.8 feet circumference, near perfect specimen. Tulip poplar, estimated 320 years old, 191 feet tall, no visible defects. On and on, page after page of trees that had stood since before Europeans arrived in these mountains. We'd cut them all down in 6 weeks. The survey included a curious note at the end. Local residents report avoiding this sector. Unclear if due to difficult terrain or cultural factors. Further investigation recommended but not completed. I should have paid more attention to that. Wednesday morning, Marcus radioed again. This time his voice was shaking. Woody, we've got a serious situation. Tommy's missing and there's... Jesus, you need to see this. I made the drive in record time, fear sitting cold in my stomach. The crew was gathered near the equipment storage, everyone accounted for except Tommy. Sarah was crying quietly. Marcus met me as I stepped out of the truck. We found him an hour ago, he said. He's alive, but... Tommy Pritchard was sitting against a tree at the edge of camp, eyes open but unseeing. His hands were covered in dirt and blood, fingernails torn. He was making a sound I'd never heard from a human throat, a keening whine that rose and fell like wind through branches. Tommy, I knelt in front of him. Son, what happened? His eyes focused on me with visible effort. When he spoke, his voice was a dry whisper. They were screaming, he said. The trees were screaming when we cut them. I heard it all, every one of them, screaming and screaming and screaming. Sarah had called for a medical evacuation. A helicopter picked Tommy up 2 hours later. The paramedics said he was in severe shock, possibly hypothermic despite the mild spring weather. They couldn't explain the dirt under his fingernails, which lab tests later revealed contained wood particles and sap from species that hadn't grown in Sector 47 for 14 years. I pulled the crew together after the helicopter left. We're shutting down operations, I said. Pack everything up. Boss, look, Marcus pointed past me, toward the planting site. Where we'd replanted the seedlings yesterday, something impossible had happened. Every tree we'd planted was dead. Not wilted or diseased, completely desiccated, as if they'd been dead for months. Their bark had split and fallen away. Their roots had turned to powder. And behind them, in the area we'd cleared for the next planting session, massive stumps that had been ground down to near ground level in 1963 were showing new growth, old growth, bark that was thick and furrowed like ancient trees, shoots emerging that were already 6 inches in diameter. Growth that should have taken decades happening overnight. Sarah approached the nearest stump with her field measuring tools, then stopped 5 feet away. The temperature, she said quietly, it's at least 20 degrees colder around the stumps, and this is impossible, but I'm getting electromagnetic readings. Trees don't generate electromagnetic fields. I walked forward, feeling that hostile presence intensifying with every step. The stumps were arranged in a rough circle, I remembered the pattern now, remembered how the biggest trees had stood in this executive seat configuration, like a council, like judges. The largest stump was the white oak I'd personally dropped, 18 feet around, 400 years old, dead by my hand on a hot July morning in 1963. As I approached it, I heard something that made my blood run cold, the distant sound of a chainsaw. But we were the only crew in this sector, and our chainsaws wouldn't start. Then I heard the sound of a massive tree falling, its crown tearing through branches, the enormous crash as it hit the ground. Except nothing was falling. The sound was there, clear as day, but the forest around us stood still. "Pack up," I said quietly. "Everyone pack up now. We're leaving." "What about the reforestation contract?" asked Marcus. I looked at the circle of stumps, at their impossible regrowth, at the dead seedlings we'd planted, at the cold air that shouldn't exist in April. "Some forests," I said, "don't want to be saved. Not by us. Not by the men who killed them in the first place." But it was already too late to leave. We discovered we couldn't leave when Marcus tried to drive the equipment truck back down the logging road. The engine started fine. We were 50 yards from the sector boundary. But the moment he tried to drive away from Sector 47, the truck died. Try to drive toward the sector, the engine purred like new. Try to drive away. Instant stall. "Electrical problem," Marcus said, but his voice carried no conviction. By Thursday morning, we were trapped. The radios worked intermittently, but every time we tried to call for help, we got static, laced with sounds that made no sense. Chainsaws, falling trees, men shouting in triumph as timber crashed down. I recognized my own voice in there somewhere, younger, calling out measurements and directions from 13 years ago. The forest was replaying what we'd done to it. Sarah had set up monitoring equipment around the perimeter. 2 temperature sensors, electromagnetic field readers, even a seismograph to measure ground vibrations. By Thursday afternoon, her scientific skepticism had crumbled. "The electromagnetic readings form a perfect circle," she said, showing me her tablet screen. 200 acres exactly, matching the boundaries of the original clear cut. The center of the field is the large oak stump, the one you said you cut down. What's causing it? She looked at me with haunted eyes. According to current scientific understanding, nothing. This can't exist. But it does, and it's getting stronger. The field has increased 17% since Monday. That night, the dreams started. I was back in 1963, 27 years old, operating the McCulloch chainsaw that weighed almost as much as I did. The white oak stood before me, massive and magnificent, its crown spreading across half an acre of sky. My crew boss had marked it with orange paint. Prime timber, straight grain, no rot. Worth a fortune. I remember feeling proud as I made the face cut, angling into the tree's base, sawdust spraying in golden arcs. The chainsaw screamed as it bit through 4 centuries of growth. I remember the smell of fresh-cut oak, sweet and clean. I remember the moment when I felt the tree begin to go, that subtle shift in weight that told you to run. But in the dream, when the tree fell, it screamed. Not the crack and groan of wood failing. An actual scream, human and agonized, that went on and on as the oak crashed down. And when I looked at the stump, blood was seeping from the cut surface, red and thick and real. I woke up covered in sweat, my hands cramping like they were gripping a chainsaw handle. Every member of the crew was awake, sitting outside their tents, all of us having shared the same dream. "We need to leave," said Jennifer Morales, our most experienced planter. "I don't care if we have to walk out. We need to leave now." We tried. All 8 of us, abandoning equipment, heading down the logging road on foot just after dawn. We made it maybe half a mile before Sarah Kalla said, "Can't breathe," she gasped, her face going pale. "Something's crushing my chest." We carried her back toward camp. The moment we crossed back into Sector 47, she could breathe again. We tried the other direction, heading upslope toward the ridge. Marcus made it the farthest, nearly 3/4 of a mile before he started coughing up blood. Back in the sector, he recovered within minutes. "It won't let us leave," Jennifer said flatly. "The forest won't let us leave until it's done with us." Friday morning, I woke to find half the crew standing in a circle around the large oak stump, their eyes vacant, their hands moving in rhythmic motions like they were operating chainsaws that weren't there. Marcus, Sarah, and I managed to pull them back to camp, but they fought us like they were possessed. Jennifer actually bit Marcus's arm, drawing blood, before she snapped out of it. "I was cutting," she said, her voice hollow. "I was cutting down the oak, but it wouldn't fall. It just kept bleeding, and I couldn't stop cutting. I didn't want to stop." That's when I saw them. Standing among the scrub growth and opportunistic saplings that had reclaimed the logged area, there were other trees. Massive trees. Trees that shouldn't exist because they'd been cut down 13 years ago. They were there and not there, solid as stone one moment and transparent as mist the next. The white oak stood exactly where it had grown for 4 centuries, towering over the scrub pine that occupied the same space. A tulip poplar rose like a cathedral spire beside it. Hickories, maples, chestnuts, the entire pre-settlement forest reassembling itself in ghostly echo. And they were moving. Not swaying in wind. Moving deliberately. Their trunks bending in ways living wood never could. Their branches reaching toward our camp with obvious intent. "Oh, Jesus," Marcus whispered. "Oh, Jess. Us Christ, they're coming for us." The temperature dropped 20 degrees in less than a minute. Our breath came out in clouds. The electromagnetic readings on Sarah's tablet spiked so high, they maxed out her equipment, and I heard my own voice, amplified somehow, echoing from the massive oak stump. "Prime timber, straight grain, no rot. Let's drop her." It was what I'd said on July 15th, 1963, right before I started cutting. The ghost trees moved closer, and I finally understood what was happening. This wasn't about reforestation or conservation or scientific forestry. This was about judgment. The forest was holding court, and we were on trial. "Everyone into the trucks," I ordered. "Lock the doors, stay together." "The trucks won't protect us," Sarah said, her scientific mind still trying to make sense of the impossible. "If these entities can manipulate electromagnetic fields this strongly, metal shells won't—" A branch crashed down on the equipment truck, caving in the roof. The tree it came from was physically 40 feet away, but its ghost reached much farther. "Jesus, it's not trying to scare us," Jennifer said, realization dawning. "It's trying to kill us." David Reese, one of our younger planters, made a run for the logging road. A massive hickory limb, ghost solid enough to kill, caught him in the chest. We heard his ribs crack from 30 yards away. He went down hard and didn't get up. We dragged him back to camp, but he was already gone. The impact had crushed his sternum and probably ruptured his heart. He was 23 years old. That's when the chainsaws started. Our dead equipment roared to life simultaneously, throttles opening to full power without anyone touching them. The Husqvarna 2100s screamed their 2-stroke engines, chains spinning at deadly speed. The steel 090 gunned like something alive and furious. They rose into the air, hovering 3 feet off the ground, their chains throwing sawdust from cutting nothing. "Into the trees!" I shouted. "Get into the thickest scrub you can find. They can't—" The steel shot forward like a missile, its chain a blur. It caught Alan Foster in the back as he ran, cutting through his jacket and shirt and deep into his spine before I could even scream a warning. Alan went down in a spray of blood, and the chainsaw continued forward, hunting. We scattered. 6 of us left now, running through scrub pine and new-growth hardwood that offered almost no cover from airborne chainsaws controlled by the spirits of murdered trees. I could hear the ghost forest moving behind us, massive trunks creaking and groaning as they displaced physics itself, manifesting more completely with each passing moment. 400-year-old oaks don't move fast, but they don't need to. We were trapped in their territory, and they had all the time in the world. Time they'd been denied by my chainsaw in 1963. I lost track of the others as I ran, focusing only on survival, on putting distance between myself and the screaming saws. But the forest grew denser, and I realized with horror that it wasn't the scrub growth closing in. It was the ghost forest, becoming real. I was running through old-growth timber now, trees that shouldn't exist pressing in from all sides. And ahead of me, blocking my path completely, stood the white oak, my white oak. The one I'd dropped on July 15th, 1963. It was magnificent and terrible, its trunk as wide as a small house, its crown blocking out the sky. And where I'd made my face cut, blood seeped in thick rivulets, running down the bark in dark streams. The chainsaw sounds stopped. Everything stopped. I stood before the tree I'd killed, and I understood that I'd been wrong about what was happening. This wasn't about judgment. It was about balance. The white oak spoke, though not in words. Its voice was the creak of stressed wood, the whisper of wind through branches, the slow, patient language of root and cambium. But I understood it perfectly. Said, you took 4 centuries. You took my entire ecosystem. You took everything that depended on me, the squirrels that nested in my crown, the moss that grew on my north side, the fungi that connected me to the other trees through the soil. You took the shade I provided, the acorns I produced, the carbon I sequestered. You took my future, the centuries I had left to grow, the seedlings I would have produced, the forest I would have shaped. I didn't know, I said, though the words were ash in my mouth. I was just doing my job. The saw doesn't excuse the sawyer. Behind me, I heard screaming. Human screaming. My crew. Please, I said. They weren't part of it. Most of them weren't even born when we logged this sector. They're here to help restore what was taken. You cannot restore 400 years. You cannot restore an ecosystem that evolved over millennia. You can plant seedlings, but you cannot plant time. More screaming. Closer now. I recognized Marcus's voice, then Sarah's. Both cut off abruptly. What do you want? I asked. What will satisfy this? There has to be equivalence, the oak said. What was taken must be returned. And then I saw them, the other ghost trees forming a circle around me and the oak. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all the major trees that had stood in Sector 47 before we clear-cut it. They were more solid now than mist, their trunks gnarled with age, their crowns interlocking overhead to form a cathedral ceiling of branches. A tribunal. You personally killed 43 trees in this sector, the oak said. Those trees represented approximately 18,000 years of combined growth. You did this in 6 weeks. I couldn't argue. It was true. I'd been proud of my efficiency. 4 of your people are dead. 3 remain. Yourself, Marcus Webb, Jennifer Morales. You have a choice to make, Woodrow Sawbones. The ghost trees parted slightly, and I saw my surviving crew members. Marcus and Jennifer were on their knees, held in place by branches that were solid as iron, their faces pale with terror. You may leave, the oak said, all, 3 of you. Walk away. Forget this place. Return to your lives. We will reclaim this sector, and in 300 years it will be forest again. Old forest. True forest. And if we stay, if you stay, you dedicate what remains of your lives to restoration. Not planting seedlings, true restoration. You will become the forest's servants, its caretakers, its devoted guardians. You will give us your time, Woodrow Sawbones, the time you took from us. I understood then what it was offering, what it was demanding. How long? For you? Perhaps 20 years at the accelerated rate. For them, less. They are younger, their life force stronger. But you will age rapidly, giving your years to power the regrowth. We will take your time to replace the time you stole. And if I refuse? The branches tightened around Marcus and Jennifer. Jennifer screamed. Then we take equivalence in the traditional way. 43 trees, 43 lives. We will hunt in these mountains until the debt is paid. I looked at Marcus and Jennifer, both terrified, both so young. I thought about Tommy Pritchard, probably sedated in some hospital psych ward, his mind broken by experiencing the forest's pain. I thought about David, Alan, and whoever else had died while I was running. And I thought about my hands, scarred from years of chainsaw work and the 18-foot circumference stump of the tree I was standing before. I'll do it, I said. I'll dedicate whatever time I have left. But let them go." "No," Marcus shouted. "Boss, you can't—" "They choose for themselves," the oak interrupted. The branches released Marcus and Jennifer. They stumbled forward, free to run, free to leave. Jennifer looked at me, at the ghost forest, at the massive oak. "How many trees can we restore in 20 years?" she asked quietly. Jen, "No." "How many?" she demanded, looking up at the oak's ghost crown. "With you, or help? With life force to accelerate the growth? Perhaps we can restore 40% of what was lost. The rest will take centuries." "That's better than nothing," Jennifer said. She looked at Marcus. "You've got a daughter. You should go." Marcus was crying, his face twisted in anguish. "I can't leave you both here. I can't." "Yes, you can," I said gently. "You have to. Tell them what happened here. Tell them why. Make sure the Forest Service knows that some places shouldn't be touched. Some places need to be left alone. Forever." Marcus looked between us, his loyalty warring with his common sense and his love for his family. "Go," Jennifer said. "Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to witness." He went. I watched him run through the ghost forest, the trees parting to let him pass, and I hoped he made it out with his sanity intact. I hoped he'd tell the story. I hoped someone would listen. Then I turned back to the white oak. "How do we start?" The tree's response was immediate and overwhelming. Roots erupted from the ground, living wood mixing with ghostly echo, wrapping around my legs and arms. I felt them pierce my skin, felt them connect to my circulatory system, felt the forest begin to feed on my life force like I was just another resource to be extracted. It should have been agony. Instead, it felt like coming home. I could feel the forest now, not just this sector, but the entire root network spreading through the mountain, the mycorrhizal connections that linked tree to tree in a vast underground web. I could feel the places where we'd logged, the scars where we'd clear-cut, the damaged ecosystems struggling to recover. And I could feel the white oak drawing on my life, taking my time, my years, my remaining decades, and converting them into growth. The stump beneath me began to regenerate, new wood forming, bark spreading, branches emerging that would eventually support a crown. It would never be the same tree I'd killed, but it would be a tree. And in 300 years, if left alone, it would be ancient and magnificent. Jennifer gasped beside me as the roots took her too, but she was smiling, tears running down her face. "I can feel it," she whispered. "I can feel them growing." We stood there, feeding the forest with our lives, and I understood that this was the only real restitution possible. Not planting seedlings or feeling guilty or writing reports about sustainable forestry. This was equivalence, time for time, life for life. Balance restored. Marcus Webb made it out. The Forest Service found him 3 days later, walking along Highway 276, severely dehydrated and suffering from exposure. He told them everything. They didn't believe him. They sent a rescue team to Sector 47. The team found 4 bodies, David Reese, Alan Foster, and 2 others I never saw die, probably while I was running from the chainsaws. They found abandoned equipment and dead seedlings. They found dramatically accelerated growth around several old stumps, including a white oak regenerating at what their reports called biologically impossible rates. They did not find me or Jennifer Morales. The Forest Service officially listed us as missing, presumed dead, though they never found bodies. They closed Sector 47 to all logging, planting, and recreational activities. They classified it as a special ecological study area with restricted access. Marcus gave interviews to anyone who would listen. He told them about the ghost trees, the possessed chainsaws, the tribunal that offered a choice between death and service. Most people assumed he'd suffered a psychological break from the trauma of watching his crew die. But some people believed him, and some of those people started asking questions about other forests, other clear cuts, other places where the logging had been too extensive and the trees too old. Reports started surfacing from timber operations across the country, unexplained equipment failures, Workers having sinua, haired nightmares, accidents that seemed almost deliberate. The Forest Service quietly updated their guidelines. No more harvesting trees over 200 years old. No more clear-cutting in biwar, previously unlogged areas. No more treating forests like they're just resources waiting to be extracted. Marcus visits Sector 47 once a year, though he's not supposed to. He hikes in from the western boundary, ignoring the signs and fences. He's told me he needs to see it, needs to know it's real. He's seen the white oak growing. After 5 years, it's already 30 feet tall, growth that should have taken a century. The trunk is scarred where my face cut was, a permanent reminder of what I did and what I'm doing to atone. Sometimes he says he sees 2 figures standing among the regenerating trees. An older man who looks ancient beyond his years, hunched and tree-gnarled. A younger woman whose hair has gone completely white. Both of them tending the forest with the devotion of monks caring for a cathedral. He says we look peaceful. He says we look transformed. He's asked if we're still alive in any meaningful sense, or if we're something else now, something between human and tree, consciousness and forest, guilt and redemption. I don't think I could answer even if I could speak. The me that could use words ended the day I stood before the white oak and accepted its judgment. The me that exists now is woven into root and soil and bark. I am feeding the forest, and the forest is feeding me. And in the exchange, something new is being created. Jennifer is the same. We tend the trees together, aging rapidly as our years are converted to growth. By now I must be nearly 90, though only 7 years have passed. Jennifer looks 60, her young face weathered and lined. We have maybe 13 years left if the oak's estimate was accurate. 40% restoration. That's what we were promised. 40% of an old-growth ecosystem accelerated through our sacrifice. It's not enough. It will never be enough, but it's something. And when we're gone, when our life force is completely consumed, maybe someone will walk through Sector 47 and see trees that shouldn't exist yet. Oaks and hickories and poplars that are somehow 75 years old despite being planted less than 20 years ago. They'll measure the trunks and count the rings, and the numbers won't make sense. They'll call it a mystery, an ecological anomaly, something to study and puzzle over. But Marcus will know, and maybe he'll tell someone, and maybe they'll understand that every tree has a soul, every forest has memory, and some debts can only be paid in time. Cut with respect, or face the consequences. The trees never forget. My name is Dakota Moonwhisper, but everyone just calls me Coda. I've been a ranger in the Cherokee National Forest for 12 years now, walking the same trails my grandmother walked when she was young. She used to tell me stories about these mountains, stories about the Nunahai, the little people who protect Cherokee land. I always smiled and nodded, treating them like fairy tales she made up to keep me from wandering too far into the woods. I wish I'd listened better. It's August 1981, and I'm sitting in my truck outside the ranger station, watching the sun come up over the Smoky Mountains. My coffee's gone cold in the cup holder. I haven't slept. 3 days ago, I got a radio call that changed everything I thought I knew about this forest. Let me back up a little. I'm half Cherokee on my mother's side. Got my degree in anthropology from UNC, thinking I'd help preserve our culture, our stories. The Park Service hired me because I speak Cherokee and the tribal elders trust me. I've done 27 wilderness rescues, and I know these mountains better than most people know their own backyards. I carry both a compound bow and a CB radio. I keep sage bundles in my pack alongside my first aid kit. People think it's weird, mixing the old ways with the new. But out here, you need both. The trouble started when Duke University sent a research team to study pre-Columbian Cherokee settlements. 6 professors and grad students all excited about getting their names in journals. They set up camp near some old sites, places the elders had specifically asked them to avoid. But academic curiosity doesn't really care about tribal warnings. I met with them on their first day. Dr. Richard Vance was leading the expedition. 50s, graybeard, acted like he knew everything about Cherokee culture because he'd read some books. I tried to be polite. Those mounds you want to dig up, I told him, they're sacred sites. The Cherokee Council hasn't given permission. He smiled at me like I was a child. Mr. Moonwhisper, we have all the proper permits from the Park Service. This is important archaeological work. It's not about permits, I said. It's about respect. He patted me on the shoulder. We'll be very careful. Document everything properly. I should have tried harder to stop them, but I was just a ranger, and they had their paperwork, and I figured the worst that would happen was some angry phone calls from the tribal council. I was so wrong. 3 days ago, Dr. Vance called me on the radio. His voice was shaking. Coda, we need help. Something's happening up here. Something's very wrong. What kind of wrong? I asked. The equipment. Our tools keep disappearing, and we keep seeing people, small people, but when we look directly at them, they're not there. I felt ice water run down my spine. What did you dig up, Dr. Vance? Just a small burial mound. We were so careful. You opened a burial mound without permission? We documented everything. But now, Coda, one of my students, Sarah, she says her shadow is missing. I know that sounds crazy, but when I look at her, there's no shadow, even in direct sunlight. And she's different. She just sits there, staring at nothing. Won't talk, won't eat. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head. The Nunahai don't take your body. They take what makes you human. I'm coming up there, I said. Don't let anyone wander off alone. Stay together. There's more, he whispered. My watch stopped. Everyone's watch stopped. But they all show different times. And the birds, Coda, the birds are flying backwards. The radio went dead. I've been trying to reach them ever since. Nothing but static. Now I'm driving up the mountain as the sun rises and everything looks normal. Too normal. The forest is completely silent. No birds singing, no insects buzzing, just my truck engine and my own breathing. I've called the tribal council. They're sending Elder Swiftwater to meet me. He's 93 years old and knows more about the old ways than anyone alive. He's also the one who warned me years ago that some stories aren't meant to be proven true. You walk between two worlds, Dakota, he told me once. That's a gift, but it's also dangerous, because both worlds can hurt you. I pull up to the research camp. 6 tents, all standing perfect and undisturbed. Their vehicles are here. The camp stove is still set up, a pot of coffee sitting on it. But there's no one around. And that's when I see it. All their modern equipment, the GPS units, the digital cameras, the metal detectors, they're arranged in a perfect circle in the center of camp. And in the middle of that circle, there's a pile of old things. Traditional Cherokee tools, a stone axe, bone needles, clay pots, things that should be in a museum or in the ground. I pick up my radio. Base, this is Ranger Moonwhisper. I'm at the research site. The team is missing, requesting backup and tribal liaison. Static. I try my backup radio. More static. I check my watch. It stopped. Frozen at 3:33. From somewhere deep in the forest I hear singing. Cherokee words in a child's voice, high and sweet and completely wrong. My grandmother was right about everything. I follow the singing. Every instinct I have screams at me to run back to the truck, but those researchers are out here somewhere. Maybe hurt, maybe worse. I've done 27 rescues. This is just number 28. Except I know it's not. The trail leads away from camp, but it's not any trail I recognize, and I know every trail in this section. The trees here are old-growth oak and pine, but they're arranged wrong somehow, like someone picked them up and put them back in different places. The singing gets louder. I can make out the words now. It's an old Cherokee lullaby my grandmother used to sing, but the voice doesn't sound quite human. It's too perfect, too pure, like a flute pretending to be a child. I round a bend and stop dead. Dr. Vance is standing in a clearing, staring up at the trees. His back is to me, completely still. Dr. Vance? I call out. He doesn't turn around, doesn't move at all. I walk closer, hand on my radio, even though I know it won't work. Dr. Vance, it's Coda. We need to get you back to camp. Still nothing. I reach out and touch his shoulder. He's cold. Not dead body cold, but like he's been standing in winter air for hours, in August. When I pull him around to face me, I understand why he won't talk. His eyes are empty. I don't mean sad or shocked. I mean there's nothing behind them, like looking into the eyes of a doll. He's breathing, blinking, but there's no person left inside, and he has no shadow. Even in the dappled forest light, even with shadows falling everywhere around him, there's nothing beneath his feet. It's like he's been cut out of reality and pasted back in wrong. "What did they take from you?" I whisper. A giggle answers me, high and sweet, coming from everywhere and nowhere. I spin around, bow in my hands before I even think about it. An arrow's nocked and ready. Nothing. Just trees and ferns in the normal forest. Except it's not normal. I can see it now. The trees are breathing. Not swaying in wind. Breathing. In and out, like lungs. "You are half-blood," a voice says in Cherokee. Child's voice, but old. So old. "You walk between worlds. The elders sent you?" I don't see anyone, but I answer in Cherokee, like my grandmother taught me. "I came to help these people. They made a mistake. They stole from us." The voice is closer now, right behind me. "They opened what should stay closed. They took what was not theirs." I turn slowly. There's a child standing 3 feet away. At least, it looks like a child at first. Maybe 3 feet tall, dressed in old-style Cherokee clothing, deerskin and beads. But the proportions are wrong. The arms too long, the eyes too large and too dark. A Nunahai, a real one, standing right in front of me. "I know," I say, carefully keeping my voice respectful. "And I'm sorry, but taking their shadows, I don't know the Cherokee word for what's been stolen. Their inner light, that's not balance, that's vengeance." The Nunahai tilts its head. "Balance? They disturbed our sleeping ones. They touched the bones of our ancestors. What balance is there in that?" Let me talk to the tribal council. Let me make this right. Too late for talk, half-blood. The Nunahai smiles and its teeth are too sharp. The others have already decided. We take what they took. Fair trade. It vanishes, not walks away, vanishes like smoke. I hear screaming from deeper in the forest. I run. Branches grab at me, but I push through. The screaming gets louder, multiple voices now. I crash through undergrowth into another clearing. 3 of the researchers are there. They're walking in circles over and over like they're stuck on a track, around and around. Their feet are bleeding, but they don't stop. They don't even seem to notice. And there are more of them, more Nunahai. 5, 6, maybe 10. Hard to count because they flicker in and out. They're 1 second and gone the next. They're watching the researchers like it's entertainment. "Stop this!" I shout. One of the Nunahai, taller than the others, wearing what looks like a warrior's clothing, turns to look at me. "Why should we stop?" They didn't stop. "Because this isn't justice. This is cruelty." "Is it cruel to protect what is ours?" The tall one steps closer. Its feet don't quite touch the ground. "For 1,000 years we have guarded these places. We keep them safe. And then these outsiders come with their tools and their disrespect, and they tear open the earth. They disturb the bones. They steal the sacred items." It gestures at the circling researchers. "We only take what they tried to take from us. The spirit, the memory, the love, the hope, all the things that make them human." One of the researchers, a young woman maybe 25, suddenly stops walking. She stands perfectly still for a moment, then collapses. Just drops like someone cut her strings. I run to her. She's breathing, but her eyes are like Dr. Vance's. Empty. "Sarah Chen," I say, remembering her name from the file. "Sarah, can you hear me?" Nothing. No response at all. The tall Nunahai laughs. It's not a nice sound. That one has lost curiosity. She will never wonder about anything again, never ask questions, never seek knowledge. My hands are shaking. "What do you want?" Tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. We want them to understand, the Nunahai says simply. We want them to feel what it's like to have something precious stolen. They understand now. Look at them. They understand. Do they? The Nunahai floats closer, its face right next to mine. Its breath smells like old earth and older secrets. Or are you the only one who understands, half-blood? You, who walk between worlds. You, who still remember the old ways. The other researchers have stopped walking too. They stand in a rough circle, all of them empty-eyed, all of them missing their shadows. I need to talk to Elder Swiftwater, I say. Please, give me 1 day. The Nunahai studies me for a long moment. Then it nods, once. 1 day. But the sun has already risen. When it sets tomorrow, if there is no balance, we take the rest. We take everything. It vanishes. All of them vanish at once. The forest is silent again. I'm alone with 6 empty people who used to be human. And I have less than 24 hours to figure out how to save them. Elder Swiftwater meets me at the trailhead just after noon. He took one look at my face and said, "They're awake then, the old guardians." "How did you know?" "Because you're still breathing." He pulls a bundle of sage from his bag and lights it, letting the smoke drift over me. "If they wanted you dead, you would be. They let you live because you're half-blood, because you respect the old ways, but also because they want you to carry a message." "What message?" "That there are consequences." He looks past me toward the mountain. "That some boundaries should not be crossed." I help him into my truck and drive him to the camp. He's old, but he moves through the forest like he's young again, reading signs I can't see. He stops at the circle of equipment, the pile of Cherokee artifacts, and nods slowly. "They're teaching," he says. "See, they took the modern tools and replaced them with the old ones. Everything old returned. Everything new removed. Can we negotiate with them?" "You can try." He looks at me with sad eyes. "But understand, Dakota, the Nunahai have been here much longer than us, longer than the Cherokee. They were here when the first people came to these mountains, and they'll be here when the last people leave. They don't think like we do. Time is different for them. Mercy is different. We find the researchers scattered through the forest, all in the same state. Empty, present but absent. I count them. All 6 are accounted for, but only 4 are still intact. Dr. Vance and Sarah Chen are completely gone, whatever they were taken away completely. The other 4 still have something left, but it's fading. I can see it in their eyes, little flickers of awareness that come and go. Elder Swiftwater examines each one, saying prayers in Cherokee, burning sage. When he's done, his face is grim. 2 are beyond saving, he says quietly. The Nunahai have taken too much. But the others, maybe. If we can make the right offering, if we can restore balance. What kind of offering? He's quiet for a long time. Then, the researchers took something sacred. To restore balance, something sacred must be given back. But not just objects. Objects are easy. The Nunahai want understanding, respect, change. I don't know if I can promise that. Then they will take everything. He grips my arm, surprisingly strong. Listen to me, Dakota. What's happening here is bigger than 6 researchers. The Nunahai are making a point. They're saying this far, no further. If we don't listen, if the outside world doesn't listen, they will do this again and again until people learn. That's when the sun starts to set early. I check my broken watch out of habit, but I know it's wrong. It should be 1, maybe 2 in the afternoon. But the sky is darkening like someone's pulling a curtain across it. The temperature drops. Frost starts forming on the leaves. Elder Swiftwater grabs my shoulder. They're coming. They want an answer now. The Nunahai appear all around us. More than before. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, flickering in and out of sight. The tall one, the warrior, stands directly in front of us. "One day," we said, "but we grow impatient, half-blood. Your people have had thousands of days to learn respect. They have not learned. Please," I say, "give me more time. I can make this right." "How?" The Nunahi's voice is sharp. "With words? With promises? We have heard promises before, always broken." Elder Swiftwater steps forward. He speaks in Old Cherokee, the formal language of ceremonies. "I am Swiftwater, eldest of the Eastern Band. I speak for the people. These outsiders, they are not Cherokee. Their mistakes are not our mistakes." "But you let them come here," the Nunahi says. "You gave permission for their digging. You share responsibility." "Then take it from me." The elder stands straighter. "Take what you need from me instead of them." "No!" I grab his arm. "You can't." "I'm 93 years old," he says gently. "I've lived a full life. They haven't. And besides," he looks at the Nunahi, "I'm Cherokee. My spirit belongs here anyway. Take what you want from me, but restore the others. Let them go home." The Nunahi Council, I realize that's what they are, a council, a court, confer among themselves. They speak too fast for me to follow, in a dialect even older than Elder Swiftwater's. Finally, the tall one turns back to us. Interesting offer, but insufficient. 1 old life for 6 young ones? Where's the balance in that? "Then tell us what you want," I'm shouting now, frustrated and scared. "Stop playing games and tell us what will restore balance." The Nunahi smiles. "You ask as if we're being cruel, as if we're the ones who violated sacred ground. But very well, we will tell you clearly. We want change, real change. We want these mountains protected. We want the sacred sites left alone, forever. Not just promises, action, laws, enforcement. I can't make that happen," I say. "I'm just a ranger." "But you walk between worlds," the Nunahi says. "You can speak to both sides. You can make them understand. That is why we let you live, Dakota Moon Whisper. Not out of mercy, out of necessity. You are the bridge. And if I fail, then we will do this again." The Nunahi gestures at the empty researchers. And again, until your people learn that some places are not theirs to take." That's when Sarah Chen starts screaming. She's been standing silent and empty for hours, but now she's screaming like her soul is being torn apart. Which I realize with horror, it is. The Nunahi aren't done with her. They're taking more. "Stop it!" I run to her, but the Nunahi block my way. "She was the one who opened the burial mound," the tall one says. "She touched the bones with her bare hands. She took photographs. She bagged and tagged our ancestors like specimens. And she did it smiling, excited about her discovery. She felt no shame, no respect. So we take her joy, her excitement, her ability to feel happiness ever again." Sarah stops screaming. She stands there, tears running down her face, but her expression is blank, empty of everything except grief. "Please," I beg, "she's just a student. She didn't know." "Ignorance is not innocence," the Nunahi says. "She chose not to know. She chose not to listen when you warned them. She chose her career over respect. So we choose justice over mercy." Elder Swiftwater is crying silently beside me. "There must be another way." "There is," the Nunahi says. "The way we have offered. Change, protection, respect, or all 6 will end up like her. Empty shells, living warnings." Dr. Vance suddenly speaks. His voice is hollow, mechanical. "Please, can't remember. Can't remember my daughter's name. Can't remember why I loved her. Please." He collapses. The Nunahi watch him fall without expression. He has lost love. the tall one says simply. Soon he will lose everything else. They all will, unless the half-blood succeeds. They vanish again. All of them, all at once. Elder Swiftwater kneels beside Dr. Vance, checking his pulse. He's alive, but not for long. Not like this. What do I do? I'm shaking now, out of my depth. How do I change laws? How do I protect an entire forest? You start, the elder says, by making a deal. Not with them. He gestures at the empty air where the Nunahai were. With us. The Cherokee Nation. We offer you full tribal adoption, full status. Then you're not just a ranger anymore. You're Cherokee Nation official representative. You speak with our authority. Will that be enough? I don't know. He helps Dr. Vance into a sitting position, though the man's eyes stay empty. But it's a start, and the Nunahai respect intention. If they see you really trying, really sacrificing, they might give you more time. What do I have to sacrifice? He looks at me sadly. Everything you've built. Your ranger career, your independence, your life as you know it. You'll be bound to this forest, to these mountains, forever. Walking between worlds, keeping the peace. Never fully belonging to either side. I think about my grandmother, about her stories, about how she always said some people amas were born to be bridges. Okay, I say, I'll do it. Then we begin at sunrise, Elder Swiftwater says. The ceremony of adoption. After that, you make your case to the Nunahai Council. And we hope, his voice breaks. We hope it's enough. The sun sets for real this time. The darkness that comes is complete. No stars, no moon, just blackness. And in that blackness, I hear the Nunahai singing. A lullaby that sounds like a funeral song. I don't sleep. Can't sleep. I sit with the researchers through the night, watching them fade little by little. They're still breathing, still physically alive, but more and more of what makes them human is being drained away. Just before dawn, another one collapses. James Park, a grad student who was writing his thesis on Cherokee pottery. He was 23. Now he's a breathing shell who will never think another thought again. The Nunahai took his intelligence, his memory, his ability to learn. He's alive but will need to be cared for like an infant for the rest of his life, if he survives. Elder Swiftwater finds me at first light. He's brought others, 3 more elders, and a younger woman who I recognize as the tribal council's secretary. They're all carrying ceremonial items. Are you ready? Swiftwater asks. No, but let's do it anyway. The ceremony takes 2 hours. They mark me with clay and ash, say prayers in Cherokee that go back hundreds of years, make me swear oaths to protect the people and the land. When it's done, I'm officially Cherokee Nation. Not just half anymore. Full member. Full responsibility. The secretary hands me a document. This is from the tribal council, she says. Official authorization for you to negotiate on our behalf, to make binding agreements for land protection. Will the Nunahai accept it? We're about to find out. We walk to the burial mound the researchers opened. It's been resealed, the dirt carefully replaced, new grass already growing over it like it was never disturbed. But I can feel the anger coming from it. The violation. I need to speak to the Nunahai Council, I call, out in Cherokee. I come as representative of the Cherokee Nation. I come to negotiate. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then the world shifts. I'm suddenly not in the forest anymore. I'm in a different place. Still mountains, still trees, but everything is older. The trees are massive, ancient things that touch the clouds. The sky is purple and green at the same time, and there are Nunahai everywhere. Hundreds of them, thousands maybe, all gathered in a great circle. I'm standing in the center. The elders are gone. I'm alone. The half-blood returns, the tall warrior Nunahai says. Now full blood. Clever. But does it matter? Will you tell us what we want to hear? I'll tell you the truth, I say. My voice echoes strangely in this place. You're right. The researchers were wrong. They disrespected sacred ground. They violated your trust and ours. They deserve consequences. Then you agree they should lose everything? No. I take a breath. I think there's a difference between justice and revenge. Justice teaches. Revenge just creates pain. A murmur runs through the gathered Nunahai. You have taken enough to teach your lesson, I continue. 2 are already lost completely. The others will carry scars forever. They will never forget what happened here. And more importantly, I pull out the document. I'm here to make sure it never happens again. Words, the warrior Nunahai says dismissively. We have heard words before. Not like these. I unfold the document. The Cherokee Nation is formally requesting that all these sacred sites be designated as restricted areas. No archaeological work without explicit tribal permission. No excavation, no research, nothing. We're also requesting that I be appointed as permanent liaison between the nation and the Park Service. My job will be to enforce these restrictions, to educate people about why these places matter. Protect them. And if people ignore these restrictions, then I stop them by whatever means necessary. The Nunahai Council confers. I can't hear what they're saying, but I can feel the weight of their attention. They're deciding my fate, the researchers' fate, maybe the fate of this whole forest. Finally, the warrior Nunahai speaks. This is acceptable, as far as it goes, but it is not enough. My heart sinks. What else do you need? We need you. It floats closer. You will be our eyes in the human world, our voice. When people come who mean harm, you will stop them. When people come who want to learn respectfully, you will teach them. You will walk between worlds, Dakota Moon Whisper, for the rest of your life. Never fully human, never fully spirit. Always watching, always protecting. That is the price for the researchers' lives. I accept. And there is one more thing. The Nunahai's expression is unreadable. Someone must remember. Someone must carry the truth of what happened here. Not just the survivors. They will be too broken to speak clearly. You will tell this story. You will make sure people know that we are real, that we are watching, that there are consequences for disrespect. I promise. Then it is done. The warrior Nunahai reaches out and touches my chest, right over my heart. Pain explodes through me. Not physical pain, something deeper. I feel something being carved into my soul, a mark that will never fade, a connection to this place, to these beings that can never be broken. When the pain fades, I'm back in the real forest. The elders are staring at me, shocked. You're glowing, one of them whispers. I look down. My hands are giving off a faint silver light. Even as I watch, it fades, but I can still feel it under my skin. Part of me is different now, changed. The researchers, I gasp. Are they? Look, Elder Swiftwater says. The researchers are stirring. Not all of them. Dr. Vance and Sarah Chen lie still, too far gone. James Park might wake up someday, but will never be the same. But the other 3 are opening the higher eyes, confused, scared, but alive, present. One of them, a young man named Tom, looks at me. What happened? I remember opening the mound and then nothing. Just darkness and singing and things being taken away. You made a mistake, I tell him gently. And you paid for it. But you're alive. You get a second chance. Don't waste it. The Nunahai appear one last time. Just the warrior, standing at the edge of the clearing. Remember your promise, Bridgewalker, it says. You are ours now, as much as you are theirs. Walk carefully, walk respectfully, and never forget we are always watching. It vanishes. Elder Swiftwater puts a hand on my shoulder. Welcome to your new life, Dakota Moon Whisper. Or should I say, welcome to your burden. 3 months later, I'm standing in front of the Park Service Regional Board, making my case. The Cherokee Nation has formally requested these 23 sites be declared off-limits, I say, pointing to the map. No exceptions, no permits, no research unless explicitly approved by the Tribal Council. That's unprecedented, one board member says. So is what happened to that Duke research team. They all shift uncomfortably. The incident was hushed up as much as possible. 6 researchers went into the woods, 3 came out mentally destroyed, 2 more came out as empty shells that needed full-time care, and 1 died 2 weeks later when his heart just stopped. No official explanation, just a quiet warning that went out to every university in the Southeast. Stay away from those sites. Ranger Moon Whisper, the board chair says carefully, are you asking us to accept that there are supernatural forces protecting these areas? I look her in the eye. I'm asking you to accept that people who disrespect these sites end up dead or worse. How you explain that is up to you. But the restrictions go into effect either way. The Tribal Council has made that clear. They vote. It's unanimous. The sites are protected. After the meeting, I drive back to the mountains. I don't work out of the ranger station anymore. Have a small cabin near the burial mounds, right on the edge of the protected zone. I'm officially the Cherokee Nation's liaison to the Park Service now. My job is to watch, to warn, to protect. I park and walk into the woods. It's sunset, the sky turning orange and purple. I can feel the Nunahai watching me. They're always watching now. I'm marked, bound to this place. I can't leave even if I wanted to. Not really. Part of my soul is woven into these mountains now. But I'm okay with that. Because I understand now what my grandmother was trying to teach me all along. Some boundaries exist for reasons. Some places are meant to be left alone. Some stories are true, even when they sound impossible. The 3 researchers who survived are in therapy, trying to process what happened to them. Tom writes to me sometimes. He's studying Cherokee history now, the right way, with respect, with permission. The others are trying to rebuild their lives, though they'll never be quite the same. Dr. Vance and Sarah Chen are in care facilities. They're physically alive, but will never wake up. The Nunahai took too much from them. They're living warnings now, evidence of what happens when you cross certain lines. James Park died last month. His parents held a funeral, but there wasn't really anyone to bury. The person he had been was already gone. I visit the burial mound as the last light fades. I leave an offering, tobacco and sage, the traditional way. The Nunahai don't appear, but I know they're there. I kept my promise, I say quietly. The sites are protected. I'm telling the story. People will know to respect these places. A breeze moves through the trees, carrying that same strange singing I heard that first day. But it doesn't sound threatening now. Just present. Watchful. I walk back to my cabin as darkness falls. Tomorrow I'll do another patrol, checking for trespassers, Maca, ensure no one goes where they shouldn't. The day after that I'll do it again, and again, for the rest of my life. Because that's what it means to walk between worlds. To be a bridge. You don't get to choose one side or the other. You stand in the middle, forever, keeping the peace. It's lonely sometimes, but it's necessary. And late at night, when I hear the Nunahai singing in the distance, I remember what the warrior told me. You are ours now. I am, and I always will be. But I'm also theirs. The Cherokee people, the researchers, anyone who comes to these mountains seeking knowledge or peace or just a walk in beautiful country. I protect all of them, from both sides. That's my job now, my calling, my burden. I just wish I'd listened better to my grandmother's stories. Maybe then I would have been ready for this. Maybe I would have known from the beginning that some tales aren't meant to teach lessons. They're meant to be warnings. And the Nunahi? They're still out there, still watching, still protecting their sacred places. They're patient, they're ancient, and they're very, very real. So if you ever find yourself hiking in the Cherokee National Forest and you see a sign marking a restricted area, respect it. Turn around, walk away. Because the Nunahai don't give second chances to everyone. I know. I've seen what happens when they decide you've gone too far. And trust me, you don't want to lose your shadow. You definitely don't want to lose what's underneath it. My name is Ezekiel Snakebrook, but everyone calls me Zeke. I've been a ranger at Wayne National Forest for 11 years now, and I thought I'd seen everything these Ohio hills had to offer. I was wrong. People think being a forest ranger is all about putting out campfires and helping lost hikers. Most days, that's true. But my job is different. I protect the old places, the ancient mounds built by people who lived here thousands of years before Columbus ever touched American soil. The Native American earthworks scattered through these forests are my responsibility, and I take that seriously. I'm 36 now, tall and thin, the kind of guy who learned early on to move carefully around sacred ground. My archaeology minor from Ohio State made me the natural choice for this work. I carry a metal detector, excavation tools, and a worn notebook full of site maps. I've protected 15 archaeological sites from vandals and worked with the Ohio Historical Society on 3 major preservation projects. The Shawnee elder from the nearby reservation, Joseph Whitefeather, calls me the one who listens. I used to tell people that Indian mounds were just old burial sites, ceremonial places where ancient people honored their dead. That's what the textbooks say. That's what I believed for 10 years. Then I learned what they're really keeping buried. It started in late September 1985, when Dr. Patricia Hammond from Ohio State called me about a discovery. Her team had found something big, a serpent mound even larger than the famous one in Adams County. This one was hidden deep in the forest, covered by centuries of leaves and soil. They'd spotted it using aerial photography, the outline barely visible through the trees. "Zeke, you need to see this," Patricia said over the phone. Her voice had that excited shake professors get when they find something important. "The construction is key, completely different from anything we've documented. It's older, much older." I drove out that afternoon. The site was 15 miles from the nearest road, accessible only by a hiking trail that wound through thick oak and maple forest. Fall was just starting to touch the leaves, hints of gold and red breaking through the green. Patricia met me at the trailhead. She was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, mud on her boots. Behind her stood 5 other archaeologists from her team, all looking tired but excited. "This way," she said. We hiked for an hour. The forest got quieter as we went deeper. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering, just our footsteps on the trail and the sound of wind through leaves. Then I saw it. The serpent mound stretched across a natural ridge, its body winding in curves that looked too perfect to be natural. It was huge, at least 400 feet long, the raised earthwork forming a snake with 7 distinct coils. The head pointed east toward where the sun rose. The tail vanished into the thick forest. "My God," I whispered. "We've been excavating for 2 weeks," Patricia said. She looked worried now, not excited. "That's why I called you. Something's wrong here, Zeke." I walked closer to the mound. The earth was ancient, packed hard by centuries of rain and roots. But something felt off. The curves looked too fresh somehow, like the snake had moved recently. "What do you mean, wrong?" Patricia glanced at her team. A younger man with glasses, David, stepped forward. "The coils have shifted," he said. "We've been mapping the structure every morning. Yesterday morning, the 3rd coil was 6 inches further west than the day before." "Earthquake?" I suggested. "No seismic activity recorded," David said. "And it's not just that. Watch." He led me to one of their excavation sites, a careful square cut into the serpent's body. The hole was maybe 4 feet deep, the walls showing clear layers of different colored soil. "We finished this pit at 6 p.m. yesterday," David said. "This morning at dawn, it looked like this. The pit was filled in. Not collapsed or eroded. Filled in with the exact same layers of soil, in the exact same order, like someone had carefully put every shovelful back where it came from." "Wind?" I said weakly. Patricia shook her head. "Zeke, we're archaeologists. We know natural site disturbance. This isn't natural." I knelt beside the filled pit, running my fingers through the loose topsoil. It was cold, much colder than it should be on a warm September afternoon. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. "2 nights ago, 3 members of the team woke up at dawn. They don't remember going to sleep. They don't remember walking. But we found them lying on the ground around the serpent's head, positioned in a perfect triangle." A chill ran down my back. They're fine, just confused. But Zeke," she pulled out a photograph and handed it to me. "We took this that morning." The photo showed 3 sleeping forms on the ground, positioned around the raised earth of the serpent's head. From above, you could see it clearly. They formed the points of a triangle that perfectly matched the shape of the mound's open mouth. I looked up at the serpent earthwork stretching before us. In the fading afternoon light, it almost looked like it was breathing. "Pack up your equipment," I said. "I need to make some calls." That night I sat in my ranger station going through every file I had on Ohio's ancient earthworks. The famous Serpent Mound in Adams County, the one all the tourists visit, was built by the Fort Ancient people around 1000 AD, or maybe the Adena culture 2000 years earlier. Archaeologists still argue about it. But this new mound was different. Older, Patricia said. Different construction. I pulled out a book written by a Smithsonian archaeologist in 1920. One line made me stop cold. Local Shawnee informants insist the serpent mounds were not built to honor the earth so pirates, but to contain them. I went back to the site the next morning with Joseph Whitefeather. The old Shawnee elder moved slowly through the forest, leaning on a walking stick carved with symbols I didn't recognize. He was quiet for the whole hike, just listening to the woods. When we reached the mound, he stopped. His face went very still. "This is a keeper mound," he said quietly. "My grandfather told me stories about these. I thought they were just legends." "Keeper? What's it keeping?" Joseph walked slowly around the serpent's head, not touching the earthwork. "The old people made a deal long before my ancestors came to these lands. They were starving. The harvests failed year after year. Then something spoke to them from underground. An old spirit, powerful and hungry." He pointed at the serpent with his walking stick. "The spirit taught them how to grow corn, beans, squash, taught them which plants heal and which kill, made them prosperous. In exchange, they had to build these mounds, prison walls made of earth and prayers. Prison for what? For the one who taught them, the earth serpent, the sleeping god that wants to wake up." Patricia and her team were working when we arrived at their camp. She looked like she hadn't slept. Dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking slightly as she poured coffee. "Another incident," she said before I could even say hello. "This morning, the metal detectors went crazy." David was sitting by a tent, staring at his equipment. "I've been using metal detectors for 15 years, he said. "I've never seen readings like this. Massive metallic signatures, stronger than buried cars or pipes. But when we dig down to investigate..." He gestured helplessly. "Nothing, just dirt." "Show me," I said. We walked to the middle section of the serpent's body. David turned on his metal detector and swept it over the ground. Immediately a machine screamed, a high-pitched squeal that made my teeth hurt. "See? It's saying there's something huge right here, maybe 10 feet down." David marked the spot with a flag, then moved 5 feet away and swept again. Nothing. He came back to the flag. The machine screamed again. "It's like something's there only when we're looking for it," he whispered. I felt my skin crawl. Joseph stood at the edge of the forest watching us. He wouldn't come closer to the mound. That afternoon, Patricia's team set up seismic monitoring equipment. If the mound was shifting, they wanted to record it. The sensors would detect even tiny ground movements. We gathered around the laptop showing the seismic readings at sunset. The screen showed mostly flat lines, normal background vibration from wind and small animals. Then, exactly at sunset, the lines changed. A pattern appeared, rhythmic, regular, like a heartbeat. "That's impossible," David said. "That's not earthquake activity, that's..." He looked at Patricia. "That's a pulse. The heartbeat continued through the night. Slow, steady, coming from somewhere deep below the serpent mound. None of us slept well. I stayed in my truck, parked at the edge of the camp. Around 3 a.m. I saw movement. Patricia was walking toward the mound. Her eyes were open, but she moved wrong. Too smooth, too steady, like she was floating instead of walking. Behind her came David and another researcher, a woman named Sarah, all three moving in the same strange way. "Patricia!" I shouted, jumping out of the truck. She didn't respond, just kept walking toward the serpent's head. I ran after them, grabbed Patricia's arm. Her skin was ice cold. She turned to look at me, and her eyes were wrong, pupils stretched vertical like a snake's. "The guardian is waking," she said. But her voice was layered, like three people talking at once. "The seal weakens. The old covenant nears its end." Then she blinked, and her eyes were normal again. She looked around, confused. "Zeke? What? Why am I out here?" David and Sarah were standing at the serpent's head and, looking down at something. I ran over with my flashlight. There was a hole, not dug, opened, like someone had unzipped the earth. The opening was maybe 3 feet across, leading down into darkness. My flashlight beam couldn't find the bottom. "We didn't dig that," David said. His voice was shaking. "I swear to God, we didn't dig that." Cold air flowed up from the hole. It smelled ancient, like caves and underground rivers and things that never saw sunlight. And from somewhere far below I heard it, a dry sliding sound, like scales against stone. Joseph was right. Something was down there, something that had been sleeping for thousands of years, and we'd woken it up. We sealed the hole at dawn using sandbags and a tarp. Patricia wanted to call the university, get more equipment, do this properly. I wanted everyone off the site immediately. "We can't just leave," Patricia argued. "This is the archaeological find of the century. Whatever's happening here, we need to document it." "People are walking around in their sleep with snake eyes," I said. "That's not archaeology. That's something else." But she wouldn't budge. Neither would her team. They'd spent years dreaming of a discovery like this. They weren't going to walk away. I called the Forest Service and requested backup. They said they'd send someone in 3 days. Budget cuts, personnel shortages, the usual excuses. We were on our own. The second night, things got worse. I was doing a perimeter check around the camp at midnight when I heard Sarah screaming. I ran toward the sound, my flashlight bouncing as I crashed through the underbrush. I found her at the serpent's tail, collapsed on the ground, sobbing. Her hands were bleeding, fingernails torn, dirt under what was left of them. "I tried to dig down," she gasped. "I don't know why. I just had to dig, had to reach it, had to let it out." Her arms were covered, in scratches that looked like they came from inside her clothes, long parallel lines, like something with claws had dragged itself along her skin from the inside. David helped me carry her back to camp. As we laid her in her tent, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Under the scratches, her skin was changing. Patches of scales, tiny, translucent, growing along her forearms. "Hospital," I said. "Now! We're taking her to—" "No!" Sarah grabbed my wrist. Her grip was impossibly strong. "Can't leave. Have to stay. Have to tend the keeper mound. Have to serve the guardian." Her voice was wrong again. Layered. Ancient. Then she passed out. We tried to carry her to my truck. We got maybe 50 feet before she woke up screaming, clawing at us, fighting with a strength that shouldn't have been possible. The moment we turned back toward camp, she went limp and quiet. "She can't leave the site," Patricia whispered. "None of us can we?" I didn't want to test that theory, but deep down, I felt it too, a pull, like invisible threads connecting me to the serpent mound. The further I moved from it, the stronger the pull became. We were trapped. The third morning, I found David standing at the serpent's head. He'd been there all night, just standing, staring down at the sealed hole. "It spoke to me," he said without turning around. "In my dreams. Showed me things." "What things?" "How the old people lived, what they learned." the knowledge the earth serpent gave them. He finally looked at me. His eyes were still human, but something in them had changed. We think of ancient people as primitive, but they knew things we've forgotten. Medical treatments we're just rediscovering. Agricultural techniques we're just figuring out. Astronomy, mathematics, all given by the Guardian. In exchange for what? A prison. David smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. They built these mounds to contain it, used their prayers and rituals to keep it sleeping. But prisons need guards, Zeke. Keepers. And we're the first keepers to visit this site in over a century. We're not keepers. We're scientists. The mound doesn't care what we call ourselves. It needed people again. We came. So the Guardian is calling us to service. He turned back to stare at the sealed hole. 2 more days. That's what it told me. 2 more days, and the seal breaks completely. Then the Guardian rises, and all the old knowledge comes back. All the ancient power. And what happens to you? I asked quietly. David touched his neck. I saw scales there too, spreading up from his collar. We become part of it. We join the Guardian. We stop being alone and become part of something eternal. That afternoon, I tried to hike out to the nearest road. I made it maybe 3 miles before the pull became unbearable, like hooks in my chest, dragging me backward. My legs moved on their own, turning me around, marching me back to the mound. When I got back to camp, Joseph was there. The old man looked grim. I felt you trying to leave, he said. The binding is almost complete. Soon you won't even remember wanting to go. How do I fight it? You don't. None of us do. The earth serpent has been planning this for centuries. Every keeper who died without passing the tradition to new guards. Every ceremony that wasn't performed. Every prayer that went unspoken. The seal has been weakening for hundreds of years. Now it's about to break. Then what do we do? Joseph pulled something from his pocket, a small leather pouch on a cord. My grandfather gave me this, made me promise to keep it safe. He said if the serpent ever woke, this was the only way to bind it again. What is it? Seeds. From the first corn the ancient people grew, planted with prayers and blessed with blood. The original contract between the earth serpent and humanity. He pressed the pouch into my hand. But using them requires a sacrifice. A new keeper must bind their life to the mound, must stay here, awake and watchful, feed, or the rest of their days. I looked at the pouch. The leather was ancient, cracking. How long would that be? However long it takes for someone to relieve you. Could be days, could be decades. Joseph met my eyes. Could be never. That night, the earth began to shake. The earthquake started small, a vibration in the ground like distant thunder. Then it grew, trees swayed, equipment toppled. The serpent mound rippled like water, its coils shifting and moving. The sealed hole at the serpent's head exploded outward. Dirt and rocks flew into the air. And from the darkness below, something rose. At first I thought it was fog, a thick mist pouring out of the hole. Then I realized the fog was moving wrong, flowing upward instead of settling. It had shape, purpose. The mist formed into a serpent's head the size of my truck, translucent but solid somehow, made of earth and ancient air and something else I had no name for. Eyes like pits of darkness opened in the fog. A mouth formed, showing teeth made of stone. The earth serpent was waking up. Patricia and her team walked toward it like zombies. Their eyes had gone fully serpentine now, vertical pupils, unblinking. Scales covered their arms and necks. They moved in perfect unison, no longer separate people, but parts of a single consciousness. "Join us, Zeke," Sarah said. But it wasn't her voice anymore. It was the layered voice I'd heard before. Thousands of years of keepers, all speaking together. Become one with the Guardian. Know everything the ancient ones knew. Never be alone again. The serpent's ghostly body stretched up from the hole. Coil after coil of translucent fog solidifying into something real. It was massive, 200 feet long or more, thick as ancient oak trees. The mist cleared, and I saw its true form, flesh-like stone, scales made of compressed earth, eyes that held the weight of centuries. "I gave your ancestors everything," the serpent said. Its voice was the sound of grinding rocks, of underground rivers, of tectonic plates shifting. "I taught them to survive, to thrive. All I asked was sleep, rest, darkness. And a prison," I said. "A prison they built, a cage they forced upon me." The serpent's massive head swayed above the mound, pieces of earth still crumbling from its body. "For 2,000 years, I have been bound, starved, forgotten. Now the seal breaks, and I am free." More of its body emerged from the hole. The ground cracked open in other places, the serpent's coils tunneling up through different parts of the mound. The earthquakes intensified. Joseph grabbed my arm. "The seeds, now, before it's fully emerged." I pulled out the leather pouch. My hands were shaking. "What do I do?" "Plant them at the serpent's head, where the original builders made their first offering. Then speak the words I teach you. Then," he looked at me sadly, "then you stay, forever watchful. The human anchor that holds the binding. There has to be another way." "There isn't." Joseph pressed something else into my hand. A knife. Old. Stone blade. "You'll need to cut yourself. Blood waters the seeds. Blood seals the contract." The earth serpent's body was almost fully out now. Where it moved, the ground split open. Trees crashed down. The forest itself was being torn apart. David and the others had reached the serpent. They knelt before it, faces turned upward in worship. As I watched, their transformations completed, bodies elongating, spines restructuring, becoming something between human and snake. Their screams of pain sounded almost joyful. I ran toward the serpent's head, dodging falling trees and opening sinkholes. The earth was trying to kill me, or maybe trying to save me, hard to tell which. The serpent saw me coming. Its massive head swung down, bringing its face level with mine. I could smell its breath, ancient dirt and mineral water and decay. "Join them," it said. "Take the knowledge I offer. Transform." "No," I gasped. "Then die." The serpent's mouth opened. Inside I saw darkness that went down forever. It lunged forward. I dove aside. Where I'd been standing, the ground imploded, sucked down into a sudden sinkhole. The serpent's bite had torn a hole straight through to whatever underground cavern system it had been sleeping in. I scrambled toward the original excavation site, the one the team had dug at the serpent's head 2 weeks ago, the one that kept filling itself in. That had to be the spot. The original offering place. Joseph was chanting behind me, old words. Shawnee mixed with something older, language from before languages. I reached the spot and tore open the leather pouch. 4 seeds fell into my palm. Ancient corn, preserved for generations. I dug with my bare hands, making a shallow hole. The serpent struck again. I rolled away, felt its stone fangs pass inches from my back. I dropped the seeds into the hole, grabbed the stone knife, cut across my palm, deep. Blood poured onto the seeds. "Now the words!" Joseph shouted over the earthquake roar. "Repeat after me!" He spoke. I repeated. The language felt wrong in my mouth. Too old. Too powerful. But I forced the sounds out, made the shapes with my tongue and teeth. The serpent screamed. It was a sound like mountains cracking, like the earth itself tearing apart. I kept speaking, blood kept flowing. The seeds began to glow. "The final binding," Joseph yelled. "You must accept the keeper's burden." I knew what he meant. The last words. The final promise. I looked at Patricia and her team. They were writhing on the ground, bodies still changing, still becoming something other than human. I looked at the serpent, its body thrashing, tearing the forest apart. I looked at my truck, parked at the edge of camp, my home in town, my life. Then I spoke the final words. The seeds exploded with green light. Vines erupted from the ground, growing impossibly fast, wrapping around the serpent's body. The ancient creature thrashed, but the vines held. They pulled it down, back toward the hole, back underground. "No!" the serpent roared. "I will not be. Bound again! I will not!" The earth swallowed it. The hole closed. The vines covered the spot, turning brown and ancient in seconds, becoming part of the mound itself. The earthquake stopped. Silence fell over the forest. I woke up 3 days later in a tent. Joseph was sitting beside me, keeping watch. My hand was bandaged where I'd cut it. My whole body ached like I'd been in a car crash. "What happened?" I croaked. "You bound the serpent, renewed the seal, became the new keeper." Joseph handed me water. "Patricia and her team are recovering. The transformation reversed once the Guardian was contained again. They don't remember much." "Did they—" I couldn't finish the question. "2 of them died, David and Sarah. Their bodies couldn't handle the change back." "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. 2 deaths. On my watch. Because I hadn't understood what we were dealing with fast enough. "It's not your fault," Joseph said quietly. "The Guardian chose them as soon as they arrived. They were doomed the moment they touched the mound." Over the next week, I helped Patricia's team pack up. We told the authorities it was a gas leak, natural pockets of methane causing hallucinations and disorientation. 2 unfortunate deaths from toxic exposure. Sad, but explainable. Patricia looked at me before she left. "I don't remember everything," she said, "but I remember enough. Thank you for saving us." I couldn't save everyone. No one could have. She touched my arm. "What will you do now?" I looked at the serpent mound, peaceful again under afternoon sun. Birds were singing. Squirrels chattered. The forest had returned to normal, but I could feel it, the binding. The connection between me and whatever slept below. An invisible chain made of blood and ancient promises. "I stay," I said. "I watch. I keep it sleeping." "For how long?" "Until someone relieves me, or until I die. Whichever come is first." That was 6 months ago. I live in a cabin now, built on the edge of the site. Can't go more than 50 miles from the mound. That's the limit of the binding. After that, the pull becomes unbearable. I quit my job with the Forest Service. Officially, I retired early for health reasons. Unofficially, I'm the keeper now, the guardian, the human anchor holding an ancient evil underground. Joseph visits sometimes, brings me supplies, teaches me the old prayers and ceremonies, says I'm doing better than most keepers do. Most go crazy in the first year, he says. Start talking to the serpent. Start believing it should be free. I won't lie. I hear it sometimes. Late at night, when the forest is quiet. A voice in my head that sounds like grinding stone and promises. It tells me things, shows me visions of what it could teach me, the knowledge I could have. But I remember David's face, Sarah's screams, the way they changed into something that wasn't human anymore. Some knowledge isn't worth the price. I've started mapping the other serpent mounds across Ohio. There are 7 major ones that we know about, maybe more hidden in the forest. If this site had a sleeping guardian, what about the others? Who's watching them? Last week I got a call from an archaeologist in Adams County. He said strange things were happening at the famous Serpent Mound. Equipment failures, workers walking in their sleep, feeling like something underground was waking up. I told him I'd look into it, added it to my map, started making plans. Because if my serpent is trying to wake up again, maybe the others are too. Maybe the seals are all weakening. Maybe the ancient prison system is failing. And if that's true, I need to find the other keepers, or make new ones, before all 7 serpents rise together. Some nights I stand at the edge of my cabin and look at the mound. It seems peaceful, just an ancient earthwork built by people long dead. But I know better now. I know what's sleeping down there in the dark. I know what it wants, and I know that my life, however long it lasts, is theirs. The only thing standing between that ancient hunger and the modern world. Indian mounds aren't just old burial sites. They're not just ceremonial places or archaeological wonders. They're prisons, keepers of things that should never wake. And I'm the guard now. Some history ain't meant to stay buried, but some things are. And it's my job, my life, to make sure they stay that way. The serpent sleeps. I watch. The binding holds. For now, my name is Jeremiah Flint Creek, but everyone calls me Jerry. I've been a forest ranger for 21 years now, longer than anyone else in this district. At 47, my hair's gone silver and my face looks like old boot leather, but I can still hike these mountains better than men half my age. Glass Mountain is my territory, has been since 1938. The name comes from the crystal formations scattered throughout the ridges. Chunks of clear mineral that catch the light like broken glass. Pretty to look at, but the old-timers always told stories about them. My grandmother especially. Granny raised me after my parents died. She was what folks politely called a mountain woman, though most whispered witch behind her back. She knew plants that could heal or harm, sang songs in a language she said was older than English, and kept bundles of dried herbs hanging from every rafter. Before she died in 1955, she made me promise something. "Jerry," she said, her hand gripping mine with surprising strength, "you protect Glass Mountain. Don't let nobody take the witch glass. Don't let nobody stare too long. It shows things people ain't meant to see." I promised, even though I figured it was just old superstition. Granny had 100 stories about those crystals, how they showed the future, revealed hidden truths, trapped souls. Mountain talk, I thought. The kind of tales people told around fires to scare children. I was wrong. It started in early September 1959. A team from the University of Virginia came up to study the crystal formations, 5 researchers with fancy equipment and doctoral degrees. The lead scientist was Dr. Helen Marquez, a mineralogist who'd published papers about unusual geological formations. She had 3 graduate students with her, Tom, Sarah, and Michael, plus a technician named David who handled all the instruments. I met them at the trailhead on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Marquez was a small woman with sharp eyes and no-nonsense manner. "Ranger Flint Creek will need access to the main crystal site. We're studying the optical properties of the formations." "Call me Jerry," I said. "And I can take you up there, but I gotta warn you, those crystals are strange. Local folks don't much like people messing with them." She smiled like she'd heard that 1,000 times. "We're scientists, Jerry. We deal in facts, not folklore." I didn't argue. I just grabbed my pack, which included my ranger gear, my rifle, and a small pouch of herbs Granny had given me. She'd called them protection, whatever that meant. I also carried her old walking stick, carved with symbols I'd never bothered to understand. The hike took 3 hours. Glass Mountain sits in a remote section of Jefferson National Forest, far from any roads. The crystals are clustered in a natural bowl between 2 ridges, surrounded by old pine and oak. It's beautiful up there, but it's also quiet in a way that makes your skin prickle. Birds don't sing much. Deer avoid the area. When we reached the site, even I had to admit it was impressive. Hundreds of crystals jutted from the ground, some as tall as a man, others small as your thumb. They were perfectly clear, like ice that never melted. Sunlight turned them into a field of prisms, throwing rainbows across the pine needles. "Magnificent," Dr. Marquez breathed. The team immediately started setting up equipment, cameras, light meters, spectrometers. I made camp a little ways off and watched them work. Professional, careful. Nothing seemed wrong. That first night, though, I noticed something odd. Around midnight, I woke to use the bathroom and saw lights moving in the crystal field. Not flashlight beams, more like the crystals themselves were glowing, soft blue light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. I walked over. Tom, one of the grad students, was standing among the crystals, just staring at one about 6 feet tall. The blue light seemed to be coming from inside it. "Tom, you okay?" He didn't turn around. "There's something in it. An image. I can see. I can see." I looked at the crystal he was staring at. At first, I saw nothing but reflected moonlight. Then my eyes adjusted, and my stomach dropped. Inside the crystal, like watching a television, I saw a scene. A man in old-fashioned clothes, maybe from the 1800s, was beating another man to death with a rock. The victim's face was twisted in silent agony. Blood splattered across the ground. I grabbed Tom's shoulder. "Don't look at it. Come away from there." He finally turned, and his face was pale as milk. "Did you see it too? Then I'm not crazy. It was so clear, I could see everything." We walked back to camp. I made coffee, my hands shaking slightly. Tom kept talking, fast and nervous. "Dr. Marquez said these crystals have unusual optical properties. Maybe they're recording light somehow? Storing images? Maybe you should stop looking at them at night," I said. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Because I'd seen it too. And in my gut, I heard Granny's voice. It shows things people ain't meant to see. The next morning, Dr. Marquez was excited about the blue glow Tom described. "Phosphorescence! The crystals must absorb light during the day and emit it at night. We need to document this." I tried to warn them. "Maybe you folks should finish up your measurements and head back down. These crystals, there's something not right about them." Sarah, a blonde woman with serious glasses, laughed. "Not right how?" "They're minerals, Jerry. Rocks. Rocks that show pictures," I said, and told them what Tom and I had seen. They looked at each other. Dr. Marquez pursed her lips. "Ranger Flint Creek, I appreciate local folklore, but we're conducting scientific research. What you probably saw was some kind of reflection or optical illusion, the moonlight playing tricks." "Both of us?" I asked. "Mass hallucination isn't uncommon in isolated environments," she said firmly. That night, they all stayed up to watch the crystals. And that night, everything changed. I woke to screaming. I grabbed my flashlight and rifle and ran to the crystal field. The team was scattered among the formations, and every single crystal was glowing that eerie blue. The whole bowl looked like it was underwater. Michael was on his knees, vomiting. Sarah was crying, her hands over her face. David was laughing, high-pitched and wrong. Tom just stood there, frozen. Dr. Marquez saw me. Her face had changed. The no-nonsense scientist was gone. She looked terrified. "We all saw them," she whispered. "All of us. Different crystals showing different things." "What did you see?" She swallowed hard. A woman drowning her baby in a creek, 18th century clothing, the baby's face. She couldn't finish. Tom spoke up, his voice hollow. "I saw a hunter shoot his brother in the back. Watched him bleed out slowly." Sarah was still crying. Children burning in a cabin fire. I could see them screaming but couldn't hear them." Michael wiped his mouth. "A hanging. Lynch mob. The man was innocent. I could somehow tell he was innocent." David's laughter died. "All of it. I saw all of it at once. Different crystals showing different deaths, murders, accidents, a whole history of violence." I felt cold despite the September warmth. "Pack up. We're leaving at first light." But Dr. Marquez shook her head. "No. Don't you see what this means? These crystals are somehow recording events, storing visual information. This is beyond any known natural phenomenon. We have to study it." "You have to leave," I said firmly. "We're scientists. We can't run from a discovery like this." I wanted to grab them and drag them down the mountain, but you can't force adults to leave public land. All I could do was warn them. My grandmother told me stories about these crystals. She said they show truth, all truth, past, present, future. She said people who stare too long get sick from it, sick in the head. With respect, Jerry, your grandmother was a superstitious woman, Dr. Marquez said. "We're staying." I should have tried harder. Should have lied, told them there was a storm coming or a dangerous animal in the area. Anything to get them away. Instead, I watched them spend the next day taking measurements, photographing the crystals, setting up instruments. They were obsessed, couldn't stop talking about the visions, analyzing what they'd seen, debating theories. That second night, I stayed awake on purpose, sat by my tent with Granny's walking stick across my lap and her herb pouch around my neck. The herbs smelled like sage and something else, something sharp and old. The crystals began glowing around 11. This time, the light was brighter. I heard Dr. Marquez gasp. She was standing in front of a large crystal, her face lit by blue light. Oh God, that's me. I walked over despite my instincts screaming to stay away. Inside the crystal, I could see Dr. Marquez, or a version of her. She was older, maybe 60, sitting in an office. She picked up a gun and put it in her mouth. "That's 30 years from now," she said quietly. "I'm seeing my own future." "Stop looking," I said, grabbing her arm. But she pulled away, stumbling to another crystal. "No. If it shows the future, maybe I can change it. Maybe I can see what leads to that and change it." She stared into the next crystal. Her face went slack. I can see everything, every decision, every consequence. It's all connected. Everything we do affects everything else, and I can see the patterns. Her voice was getting dreamy, distant. Tom called out from across the field. "Dr. Marquez, I can see the solution to my thesis. It's all here. The crystals are showing me." Sarah laughed. "I can see who I'm going to marry. His name is David. Not our David, a different David." They were all spreading out, moving from crystal to crystal, lutuseuse. Ike addicts looking for a fix. I pulled the herb pouch from my neck and opened it. Granny had told me once that these herbs would cloud the witch glass. I thought she was crazy. I threw a handful at the nearest crystal. The moment the herbs touched it, the blue light flickered and dimmed. The surface clouded over, becoming opaque. Dr. Marquez screamed like I'd hurt her. "What did you do?" "Saving you," I said. But there were hundreds of crystals. I couldn't cloud them all. By the third day, I knew I'd lost them. None of them slept. They just moved from crystal to crystal, staring into the glowing surfaces, taking notes in shaky handwriting. They stopped eating, barely drank water. Their eyes had a glazed look, and they mumbled constantly about what they were seeing. "The crystals show everything," Tom explained to me, his voice excited and strange. "Not just the past, not just the future. They show truth, pure, absolute truth. Every secret, every hidden thing, every answer to every question." "That's making you sick," I said. "No," his voice rose. "It's making me see clearly for the first time in my life. Did you know that my mother never loved my father? She stayed with him out of obligation. I can see the moment she decided to stop trying. I can see my birth in her face. She wasn't happy. She was disappointed." "Tom, that's truth," he interrupted. "Uncomfortable truth, but truth nonetheless." Sarah walked past, talking to herself. 342 lies I've told in my life. I've seen every single one. Watched myself tell them. The crystal doesn't judge, it just shows. Michael had stopped talking entirely. He just sat in front of one large crystal, staring, tears running down his face. David was the worst. He'd found a cluster of smaller crystals and was moving between them rapidly, his head jerking like a bird. "So many futures," he muttered. Branches splitting into more branches. I can see what happens if I move left, if I move right, if I stay still. Every possibility, every outcome. It's beautiful, it's terrible. I can't stop. Watching." Dr. Marquez was taking notes, her handwriting deteriorating into scribbles. "The crystals are a recording medium," she said. "But not just passive. They're active. They're processing information. The mountain itself. What if the mountain is alive? What if these crystals are its eyes, its way of seeing?" That thought made my skin crawl. Because I'd been feeling watched since we arrived. A constant pressure, like something huge and patient was aware of us. On the fourth night, things got worse. I saw a figure moving through the crystals. At first I thought it was one of the team, but this shape was wrong. Too tall, too thin. It seemed to be made of crystalline facets, reflecting and refracting the blue light. It wasn't human. I grabbed my rifle and approached slowly. The figure turned to look at me, and I nearly dropped the gun. It had no face, just a smooth surface that reflected my own terrified expression back at me. Then it spoke. Not with a mouth, but through the crystals themselves. The sound came from all around me, a resonance that vibrated in my chest. You were taught to protect us. Its voice was many voices at once. Men, women, children, old and young, all speaking in perfect unison. What are you? I managed. We are what remains. Every death on this mountain, every life, every moment of pain and joy and truth. We are memory made solid. We are the witness that does not forget. I thought of Granny, thought of her stories about souls trapped in the witch glass. Let them go, I said, gesturing to the research team. They don't understand what they're seeing. The crystal figure tilted its head. They asked for truth. We give only what is requested. Look. Against my will, my eyes were drawn to the nearest crystal. Inside, I saw myself, but not the present me, a future me. I was older, maybe 60, sitting alone in a cabin, no family, no friends, just an old man dying alone, haunted by memories of people he couldn't save. Your path, the voices said. One of many possibilities. Would you like to see the others? No. I tore my eyes away, and it took every ounce of will I had. The others do not resist. They drink deeply of truth. Soon they will be empty vessels, and we will fill them. Empty? They will become us. Their consciousness absorbed into the crystal matrix. They will see everything, know everything, feel everything. They will become eternal witnesses. Horror washed over me. That's murder. That is transcendence. We do not take. We offer. And they are accepting. I looked at the team. They were all sitting now, arranged in a circle around the largest crystal. Their eyes were open but unseeing. They were rocking slowly, in perfect unison. They were already gone. I ran to Dr. Marquez and shook her. Helen, wake up. Her eyes focused on me for just a moment. I can see my mother's death, my father's affairs, my brother's addiction, every lie I've ever told myself. I can see it all, Jerry. I can finally see. You're losing yourself. No, she smiled. I'm finding truth. Her eyes glazed over again. I pulled out Granny's pouch and threw herbs over all of them. The crystals around them flickered and dimmed, and the team gasped like they'd been underwater. What did you do? Tom screamed. I was so close. I almost understood everything. We're leaving, I said. All of us, right now. But Michael stood up, his movements jerky and wrong. When he spoke, it was with that same multi-voiced resonance I'd heard from the crystal figure. You cannot cloud all the glass. You cannot save them all. 3 have already chosen. Michael? Sarah whispered. But it wasn't Michael anymore. His eyes had turned crystalline, clear and faceted, reflecting light that wasn't there. He walked toward the largest crystal format, ion, and simply merged with it, his body becoming transparent and hard. Within seconds, he was part of the crystal itself, frozen inside, his face locked in an expression of ecstasy. Sarah screamed. I grabbed Sarah and Tom, pulling them away from the crystals. David and Dr. Marquez were still sitting, still staring, still rocking. Run, I shouted. But the crystal figure blocked our path. More of them now, 5 or 6 shapes made of light and angles surrounding us. 3 have been chosen, they said. 3 will remain. 2 may leave. But you, Protector, you must make a choice. What choice? Destroy the glass or join the glass. Your grandmother understood. She was offered transcendence and refused. She chose ignorance over truth. You must choose as well. I thought fast. Granny's walking stick felt heavy in my hand. She'd carved symbols into it. Protective symbols, she'd said. But maybe they were more than protection. The stick, I said aloud, remembering. She used it to mark boundaries, to close things that shouldn't be open. The crystal figures moved closer. You cannot destroy us all. We are the mountain. We are eternal. Maybe, I said, but I can slow you down. I pulled out every herb from Granny's pouch and threw them in a circle around Sarah and Tom. The crystals within that circle immediately clouded over, their blue light dying. Then I did something I'd been taught never to do. I struck the largest crystal with Granny's walking stick. The sound was incredible. Not just breaking glass, but a scream that came from the mountain itself. The crystal shattered, and a wave of force knocked me off my feet. The crystal figures shrieked, their voices fracturing into hundreds of separate sounds. For a moment, I could hear individual voices, people who'd died on this mountain over centuries, their consciousnesses trapped in the witch glass. I'm sorry, I said, and brought the stick down on another crystal. And another. Each one I shattered released a burst of light and sound. The blue glow was flickering now, dying. The crystal figures were falling, apart, their forms losing cohesion. You will regret this, they said, but the voice was weaker. You choose blindness over sight, ignorance over truth. I choose life over whatever you're offering, I said, and smashed 3 more crystals. Dr. Marquez suddenly gasped and stood up. Her eyes were her own again, but they were filled with horror. What have I seen? Oh God, what have I seen? Don't think about it, I said. Help me get the others. We grabbed David and dragged him away from the crystals. He fought us, screaming about futures he needed to see, truths he needed to know. But we got him outside the clouded circle, and the moment we did, he collapsed, sobbing. I looked at the largest crystal formation, the one where Michael had merged. Inside, I could see him, along with 2 others, graduate students I'd noticed earlier. They were conscious, I realized with horror, aware, but trapped, forced to watch and witness forever. We can't leave them, Sarah said. I raised the walking stick. I'm sorry, Michael. No! Dr. Marquez grabbed my arm. If you shatter that crystal, you'll kill them. They're already gone, I said gently. What's in there isn't Michael anymore. It's just his consciousness, forced to see everything forever. That's not life. But I couldn't do it. Couldn't bring myself to strike. Instead, I heard Granny's voice in my head, clear as day. Make a bargain. I turned to the crystal figures. They were fading but still present. A deal. I'll stop breaking the crystals. I'll protect this place from others who might exploit you. But you let those 3 rest. No more feeding on people. No more stealing souls. Silence. Then, we accept. But know this. We are patient. We are eternal. The next protector may not be so wise. I'll make sure they are, I said. The crystal figures dissolved. The blue light faded completely. The mountain fell silent. Inside, the large crystal, Michael's face relaxed. The expression of ecstasy faded to peace. Then his form simply disappeared, along with the other 2. Released, I hoped. But I'd never know for sure. We left at first light. Dr. Marquez, Tom, Sarah, and David. We didn't speak much on the way down. What do you say after seeing too much truth? The official report said there was a carbon monoxide leak from the camping equipment. Mass hallucination. The university quietly shelved the research project. Michael was listed as missing, presumed dead, along with the 2 other students. Their bodies were never found. Dr. Marquez quit academia entirely. Last I heard, she was working at a small library in Montana, far from any mountains. Tom and Sarah both changed their majors, nothing to do with geology anymore. David was in therapy for 2 years. None of them talk about what happened. I know, because I asked. As for me, I'm still here, still protecting Glass Mountain. I established an unofficial restricted zone around the crystal formations, claiming unstable ground conditions. Most people respect it. Those who don't, well, I'm usually there to turn them back. But something changed in me up there. Ever since I shattered those crystals, I've been able to see things. Not as much as the crystals showed, thank God for that, but glimpses. When I look in mirrors or windows or any reflective surface, sometimes I see the truth beneath the surface, a person's real feelings, hidden motives, secrets they're keeping. It's exhausting. Granny was right. Some knowledge isn't meant for human minds. I'm 67 now, 20 years older than when it happened. Still hiking these mountains, still protecting the glass. The crystals are still there. I couldn't destroy them all, and the ones that remain have gone dormant, just like we agreed. But sometimes, on nights with a full moon, I see them glow. Just a faint blue light, barely visible. And I hear whispers on the wind, voices of all the people whose truths are trapped in that mountain. Young rangers sometimes ask me why I stay here, why I never transferred to an easier post. I tell them it's because I love these mountains. That's true, but it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that I made a promise. To my grandmother, to the mountain, to the souls in the glass. Someone has to stand watch. Someone has to make sure that knowledge stays buried. Because I learned something up there that the crystals never showed me. Truth isn't always good. Sometimes truth destroys people. Sometimes ignorance is a blessing. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose not to look. I think about Michael sometimes, about whether I saved him or killed him when I made that bargain. I'll never know. That's the thing about truth. Even when you find it, you can't be sure you understood it right. Last week, a new geology team requested permission to study Glass Mountain. I denied the permit, told them the terrain was too dangerous. They complained to my supervisor, but he backed me up. He's been here almost as long as I have, and he trusts my judgment. Before I die, I need to find someone to take over. Someone who will protect this place. Someone who understands that some doors should stay closed, some questions shouldn't be answered, and some glass should never be looked through. My grandmother knew that. She chose to live with mystery instead of terrible certainty. She chose human connection over infinite knowledge. That's what I tell myself when I wake up at 3 a.m. still seeing visions in the darkness. When I look in the bathroom mirror and see not just my reflection, but the scared boy I once was, the soldier I became, the old man I'm turning into. All at once, all true, all terrifyingly clear. The witch glass is still up there, waiting, patient, eternal, and I'm still here, standing guard. Some things aren't meant to be seen, some truths aren't meant to be known, and some mountains should be left alone. That's my tea. Ruth now, the only one I need. My name is Luther Sootbeard, but everyone calls me Luke. I've been a ranger in the Monongahela National Forest for 19 years now, ever since I came back from Korea and decided I'd had enough of being underground. Funny how life works. I spent 12 years as a coal miner before the war, and now I spend half my time sealing up old mines to keep folks from falling into the dark. I'm 43 years old, and my hands still carry the black stains under the fingernails that no amount of scrubbing will ever remove. My mama says it's the mountain's way of marking its own. She should know. Black lung took my daddy, and it's working on her now too. Lost both my brothers in a collapse back in '52. Sometimes I think the only reason I got out is because somebody needed to take care of her. People ask me why I volunteered for the mining safety detail. Truth is, I understand these mountains in a way most rangers don't. I know the smell of bad air, the way water sounds when it's eating through support beams, the particular kind of silence that means a shaft is about to give way. In 19 years, I've sealed 47 dangerous mines and stopped 12 accidents before they happened. I know my job and I'm good at it. But I never believed in mine spirits. Sure, the old-timers talked about them, things that lived in the deep dark, creatures made of coal dust and bad dreams. I figured it was just guilt and bad air making men see things. The real dangers underground are cave-ins, gas pockets, and rotted timbers. That's what I thought anyway. Until October 15th, 1967. That morning started normal enough. I was filling out paperwork at the ranger station when Sheriff Morrison called. 5 geologists from Virginia Tech had gone missing near the old Black Rock mine. They'd been doing a survey for coal reserves, testing to see if there was anything worth digging up after all these years. Last radio contact was at 3:17 p.m. the day before. The transmission was mostly static, but the dispatcher caught a few words. Something about breathing in the walls and coal dust moving against the wind. I told Morrison I'd check it out. The Black Rock mine had been sealed in 1943 after 31 miners died in what the company called a collapse. But I'd heard the real story from my daddy before he passed. Those men didn't just die, they disappeared. And when they finally sent a crew down to recover the bodies, they couldn't find them. Just empty tunnels that went deeper than the maps showed, and a smell like burning coal mixed with something rotten. The company poured concrete in the main shaft and walked away. I loaded my truck with my mining helmet, the old carbide lamp I kept for emergencies, my canary cage with 2 birds inside, gas detection equipment, and 300 feet of good climbing rope. If those geologists had gone into that mine, I needed to be ready for anything. The drive to Black Rock took 40 minutes on logging roads that hadn't seen maintenance in years. The autumn trees were beautiful, reds and golds burning bright under a gray sky. But as I got closer to the old mine site, something felt wrong. The birds stopped singing. The wind died down. Even my truck engine seemed to run quieter. When I reached the mine entrance, I sat in the cab for a full minute, just looking. The concrete seal was broken, not cracked or weathered, broken from the inside. Chunks of it lay scattered on the ground, and the steel barriers behind it were bent outward like somebody had opened them like a flower. The opening gaped dark and cold, and I could see footprints in the dirt leading inside. 5 sets of footprints going in, none coming out. I grabbed my gear and my shotgun. Before I went inside, I checked the air quality monitor. The readings made me frown. The air was breathable, oxygen levels normal, but the composition was wrong in ways I couldn't explain. It was like the atmosphere itself had been changed, made into something that could keep you alive, but wasn't quite right. I clicked on my helmet lamp and stepped into the dark. The first thing that hit me was the cold. It shouldn't have been cold. Mines stay about 55 degrees year-round, cool, but not freezing. This was like walking into winter. My breath came out in white clouds, and frost sparkled on the old wooden support beams. The second thing was the silence. Not the normal quiet of underground, but something heavier, like the mountain was holding its breath. I followed the geologists' footprints deeper. They'd been walking in a group at first, staying close together, smart. But about 200 feet in, the prints started to scatter. People had been running. I found a dropped flashlight, still on but dying, then a clipboard with survey notes. The last entry read, "Dust patterns defy air current models. Particles appear to be moving with purpose." The tunnel kept going, past where it should have ended according to the old maps. Somebody, or something, had been digging. The walls showed pick marks, but they were wrong. Too deep, too uniform, like whatever made them had incredible strength and perfect rhythm. I heard it then, a sound echoing from deep inside the mountain. Tap, 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 tap. Metal on stone, following the beat of an old mining work song. My daddy used to sing it. So did my brothers. "Keep your head low, boys. Keep your head low. Dig that coal, boys. Make it flow." I stopped walking. Nobody should be down here. Nobody had mined Black Rock in 24 years. That's when I noticed the coal dust. It was everywhere, thick on the floor and walls. But it was moving, not blowing in wind. There was no wind. Moving in patterns like water finding its way downhill, except it was going up the walls and across the ceiling. As I watched, the dust formed shapes, a hand, a face, letters that spelled out words before collapsing back into random particles. I opened the canary cage with shaking hands. The birds were supposed to warn me about bad gas. I set the cage down and watched. Both canaries immediately fell off their perches, dead, just like that, in less than a second. Then they got back up. The birds stood, their heads jerking in wrong angles, and their eyes had turned completely black. The coal dust was moving inside their bodies, visible under their feathers like dark veins. They stared at me and opened their beaks, but instead of chirps, I heard something else. Whispers in my daddy's voice. Come deeper, Luther. Brothers below need company. I left the cage and ran. Not far, just far enough to think clearly. I'm not proud of running, but I'm not stupid either. Something was very wrong in this mine, and those geologists were in serious trouble. I needed to find them and get out, fast. I followed the main tunnel another 100 feet and found the first one. Dr. Sarah Chen, according to her ID badge, was embedded in the coal seam wall. Not crushed against it or trapped by a collapse. Embedded in it. I could see her face and her hands, pressed into the black rock like it was soft clay. But she was alive. Her eyes moved to look at me, wide and terrified. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out except a wet clicking noise. The coal dust was moving under her skin. I could see it spreading through her veins, dark lines creeping up her neck and across her face. As I watched in horror, her fingers began to merge with the rock. The boundary between her skin and the coal was disappearing. I grabbed her hand and pulled. It was like trying to pull someone out of wet concrete. She came loose a few inches, and she screamed, a sound I still hear in my nightmares. Where I'd pulled her free, her skin had torn, but underneath wasn't blood and muscle. It was coal dust and rock, already replacing her body from the inside out. I let go, and she sank back into the wall. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Behind me, I heard footsteps, slow, heavy footsteps that echoed wrong in the tunnel. I turned and saw my first coal seam devil. It looked like a miner at first, wearing old clothes from the 1940s, carrying a pickaxe, walking toward me with steady purpose. But as it came into my lamp's light, I saw the truth. Its face was made of coal dust, held together by some force I couldn't understand. Its eyes were empty sockets that somehow still saw me. And when it opened its mouth, more dust spilled out, forming words in the air. Need, more, hands, for, digging. I raised my shotgun and fired. The blast tore through its chest, scattering dust everywhere. For a moment I thought I'd stopped it. Then the dust swirled back together, reforming into the same shape. It kept walking toward me, pieces of it falling and rebuilding with each step. I ran again. This time, I meant it. I made it another quarter mile before I had to stop, chest heaving, coughing from the cold air and the coal dust that seemed to be everywhere now. My lungs burned. Not the normal burn of running, something else. Something that felt like the mountain was getting inside me. I found the rest of the survey team in what looked like an old equipment chamber. They'd barricaded themselves in using mining carts and rotted timbers. It hadn't helped. 2 of them were already like Dr. Chen, halfway into the walls, conscious but transforming. The other 2 were still mobile, but I could see the black veins spreading under their skin. One of them, a young guy with a tech hoodie, grabbed my arm when he saw me. You have to stop breathing, he said, his voice shaking. The dust gets in when you breathe. It gets in and it changes you. It makes you part of them, part of the mine. Who are them? I asked. The miners who never left, the ones from 43. They're still here, still digging. They want us to dig with them. They need us to dig. The temperature dropped another 20 degrees in seconds. Frost spread across the south. Walls like fingers reaching, and I heard them coming. Dozens of footsteps in the tunnels around us, all walking in the same rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. They came from every direction. Miners in old clothes, their bodies made of coal dust and rock and something else. Something that had once been human. Some of them I recognized from old photographs. Tommy Haskins, who'd been my daddy's friend. Bill Morrison, the sheriff's grandfather. Even my brother James, his face frozen in the expression he'd worn the last time I saw him alive. 24 years younger than me now, because the mine had preserved him perfectly. Luke, my brother's mouth said, but the voice was wrong, layered with whispers. We've been waiting for you. Mama's down here too. She wants to see you. Liar, I said, but my voice shook. Mama was home in her bed, dying slow from black lung. She wasn't here. Not yet, James agreed. But soon. Everyone comes to the mountain eventually. Everyone comes below. They surrounded us, not attacking, just standing there in a circle, waiting. One of the geologists screamed and tried to run. 3 of the dust miners grabbed him. He fought hard, but they were strong. They pressed him against the tunnel floor, and I watched as the coal dust rose up around him like water, covering his body, filling his mouth and nose. He stopped struggling after a moment. Then he stood up, his eyes black, and joined the circle. The young guy in the hoodie looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. Then he walked into the circle on his own. He knelt down, and the dust began to cover him too. I was alone with the dead miners and the dying geologists, and I was starting to feel the dust in my own lungs, cold and alive, whispering memories that weren't mine. I remembered digging coal by lamplight. I remembered the taste of rock dust and the sound of the mountains settling. I remembered dying in the dark, and I remembered not dying, and I remembered being given a choice: sleep forever, or wake up as part of something bigger, something hungry, something that needed to grow. This mine was alive. It had always been alive. The coal seam was its body, and the miners were its hands, and it was digging toward something deep below, toward other mines, other mountains, other sleeping things that hadn't woken up yet. I pulled out my last road flare and lit it. The bright red light made the dust miners hesitate just for a second. In that second, I saw what they really were beneath the human shapes, swirling columns of darkness held together by will and anger and the mountain's deep hunger. "I ain't joining you," I said. "Not today." I ran toward the newest tunnel, the one that went deeper than any mine should go, and I heard them all coming after me. Their footsteps shook the walls. The dust rose up like a black tide, and somewhere far below, something huge was moving, waking up, reaching toward me with patience that had lasted millions of years. I had one chance, one desperate, stupid chance. The new tunnel sloped down at a sharp angle, going deeper than the old maps showed, deeper than any mine should go. My carbide lamp barely pushed back the darkness, and behind me I could hear dozens of footsteps all moving in perfect rhythm. The dust miners were coming, and they weren't in a hurry. They knew I couldn't escape. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber. My lamplight couldn't reach the ceiling or the far walls. It was huge, carved out of solid rock with impossible precision. And in the center of it stood something I still don't have words for. It looked like a giant miner at first, 50 feet tall, made entirely of coal dust and rock and the preserved bodies of every man who'd died in this mountain for the past 100 years. I could see faces pressed into its surface, mouths open in permanent screams or songs, I couldn't tell which. Arms and legs stuck out at angles, all moving slowly, all digging at the walls with tools made of bone and rock. The thing's head turned toward me. Its eyes were mine shafts going down forever. "Luther Sootbeard," it said, and its voice was every miner who'd ever died underground speaking at once. "Son of Thomas, brother of James and William, we've been waiting." Behind me, the dust miners filled the tunnel entrance. I was trapped between them and this massive thing. The air was so cold now that ice was forming on my clothes. My breath came out in frozen clouds, and I could feel the dust in my lungs moving, trying to connect with the entity before me. "What are you?" I managed to ask. "The mountain's heart," it answered. "We were here before the coal, before the stone. We slept in the deep places, and you woke us. Your picks and drills and dynamite, you broke our sleep. Now we are awake, and we are hungry. We need hands to dig. We need bodies to reach. We need you." The thing reached toward me with a hand made of 100 smaller hands all grasping together. I stumbled backward and felt the dust miners grab my arms. They were pulling me toward it, and I could feel my body starting to change. The dust in my lungs was spreading, turning my blood black, making my bones hard like coal. That's when I saw her, my mama, standing at the edge of the chamber in her nightgown, just like she looked at home. She smiled at me, sweet and sad. "Come on, baby," she said. "Don't fight it. It don't hurt after a while. Your daddy's here, and your brothers. We're all together now. We can be a family again." "You're not real," I said, but I wanted it to be her so badly. "Real enough," she answered. "This is what's waiting for everyone, Luke. Everyone who breathed the mountain's air, who took its coal, who dug into its skin. We all come back. We all come home. My hands were turning black. I could see the dust moving under my skin like worms. In a few more minutes, I'd be like the others, awake but not A-L-E-V, digging forever in the dark. Then I remembered something my daddy told me before he died. He'd been coughing up black blood, his lungs full of coal dust, and he grabbed my hand with the last of his strength. "The mountain takes what it's owed," he said, "but fire and air can make it let go, just for a moment. Gas and flame, boy, gas and flame." I still had the road flare in my pocket, and I had my gas detection equipment, which included a small tank of methane for calibration. Methane, the same gas that caused mine explosions, the gas that every miner feared more than cave-ins or floods. I pulled out the tank and opened the valve. The gas hissed out, invisible but deadly. The dust miners didn't understand what I was doing at first, but the mountain's heart knew. It roared and tried to pull away, dragging the smaller miners with it. "Gas and flame," I whispered, and I lit the road flare. The explosion wasn't as big as a real mine disaster, but in that enclosed space, it was enough. Fire filled the chamber, bright and hot and clean. The dust miners screamed, not with voices, but with the sound of wind through empty tunnels. Their bodies scattered into ash. The mountain's heart collapsed in on itself, the faces in its surface going silent, the arms and legs falling still. But it wasn't dead. Even as the flames died down, I could see it starting to reform. The coal dust was coming back together, slower this time, but still moving with purpose. I ran. The tunnel was collapsing behind me, support beams cracking, ceiling stones falling. I ran past where Dr. Chen had been in the wall. She was gone now, just a smooth surface where she'd been. I ran past the equipment chamber, past the canary cage with its dead birds that were trying to fly with broken wings. I ran until I saw daylight, and then I ran harder. Behind me, the old Black Rock mine caved in. The entrance disappeared in a cloud of dust and falling rock. I made it to my truck and drove away, not stopping until I was back at the ranger station. But I knew the truth. The mountain's heart wasn't gone. It was just waiting again, sleeping again, and somewhere beneath West Virginia, it was still digging. They found me 2 hours later, sitting in my truck outside the station, coughing up coal dust that moved on its own. Sheriff Morrison took me to the hospital. The doctors ran every test they had and couldn't explain what they found. My lungs were full of black particles that showed up on x-rays, but didn't behave like any substance they knew. The dust moved when they weren't looking. It spelled out words on the examination table. It whispered in mining songs. The government sealed Black Rock Mine with concrete again, thicker this time. They put up fences and warning signs. The official report said the geologists died in a collapse, their bodies unrecoverable. Nobody mentioned the dust miners or the mountain's heart or what I'd seen down there. But I know the truth, and so does the mountain. Since that day, I've been different. I cough constantly, bringing up black dust that forms shapes before disappearing. Sometimes I see my brothers standing at the edge of the forest watching me. Sometimes I hear my daddy singing the old mining songs late at night. And sometimes, when I'm very tired, I feel the mountain calling me back down, promising rest and reunion and purpose. Sheriff Morrison reports similar incidents at 7 other abandoned mines across the state. Seals broken from the inside, missing hikers and survey teams. Strange sounds echoing from deep underground. The pattern is spreading. I still work as a ranger, though they wanted me to retire on medical leave. I can't stop. Someone has to watch the old mines. Someone has to understand what's waking up down there, spreading through the honeycomb of tunnels that humans carved into these mountains. 3 weeks ago, my mama passed away. Black lung, the doctor said. But on her last day, she grabbed my hand and smiled. Her eyes had gone black just for a moment, and she whispered, "I'll see you soon, baby. We'll all be together, digging in the dark." I know what's happening to me. The dust is spreading through my body slowly, changing me from the inside out. In a few months, maybe a year, I'll start hearing the mountains call too loud to resist. I'll walk back to Black Rock or to one of the other mines, and I'll go down into the dark. I'll join my family and the other miners, and I'll dig forever while the mountain's heart grows stronger. But until then, I have a job to do. People keep wanting to reopen the old mines. Coal prices are up, and companies are sniffing around, doing surveys, talking about how much wealth is still underground. They don't understand that some things should stay buried. They don't know what's down there, waiting. I try to warn them. I file reports. I show them the evidence. But most folks don't believe in mine spirits. They think I'm just an old ranger who spent too much time breathing bad air. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm crazy, and everything I saw was just gas hallucinations and guilt about my lost family. Maybe the dust in my lungs is just black lung, and the voices I hear are just memories. But I don't think so. Last night, I was sealing another old shaft near Seneca Rocks when I heard something. Deep below, beyond the reach of my equipment or my light, something was digging. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was closer than it had been last month. Whatever's down there is coming up, slowly, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. So I'm writing this down, leaving a record. When I finally go down into the dark and don't come back, maybe someone else will read it. Maybe they'll understand. The mountains of West Virginia are old, older than humans, older than coal. We thought we were mining them, taking what we needed. But the truth is simpler and more terrible. The mountains were always alive. The coal we burned was their flesh. The tunnels we dug were wounds in their bodies, and now they're awake, and they're angry, and they want their pound of flesh from everyone who ever hurt them. Strip mining ain't just killing mountains. It's waking things that should stay buried. And when they fully wake up, when the mountain's heart breaks through to the surface, all of us who ever took from the earth are going to pay the price. I can feel it in my lungs. I can hear it in the dark. I can taste it in the dust I cough up every morning. The mountain is calling, and sooner or later, everyone answers. My name is Luther Sootbeard, and I've got maybe 6 months before I join the coal dust devils underground. 6 months to seal as many mines as I can, to warn as many people as will listen, to make peace with what's coming. 6 months before I see my family again, before I start digging, forever.